wage system, our wages, the step system. I'd like to discuss that. And just a report on Vision West, Bush Foundation information.
You do that on your portfolio, right?
I can, yeah, I can. And the ZAP lots, the sale of the ZAP lots, where we're at with that. So those are the three things I'd like to add.
Okay, I would like to add the Golden Alley House.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've been asked to move the conflict with sheriff up under sheriff update since he'll be here today.
Well, I think that's where it needs to be, if he's going to be here. So we'll move that up to sheriff's update.
Okay, I have a question on that. Last time I did a sheriff's update and I brought up an issue that I had with the sheriff, I got a letter from the attorney saying that, nope, that's not where you bring that up. You can't bring it up there. That's why I had it in the other business. Jessica sent me a letter. And remember, I answered it to her.
She sent you a letter?
Yep. An email saying that under sheriff's update, you don't bring up conflict, you bring up, I wish I would have brought it with me, I did not. But I did answer it, and I copied you on that, Shanna, that was about a month ago. So that's why I didn't have it on the sheriff's update. As long as I can bring up, stuff that can be discussed rather than just a report, I have no problem with moving it up there.
So what do you want to do? Move it up there?
I'll move it up there as long as I can bring up concerns that may need discussed.
Were those concerns discussed at the last meeting, or are we going to rehash them?
They're going to be
No?
reiterated a little bit, not so much as the last meeting once, no.
Okay. Well, we'll move it up to sheriff's update.
Okay,
The word conflict is a different type of word. I think if he is here, that's where we should do that. Anything else?
I so move we approve the agenda as printed and additions.
Is there a second?
second.
Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Wes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Wayne?
I'll vote aye.
And I'll vote aye, motion carried. The minutes of the February 6th meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Marv, how do you vote?
Aye.
Wayne?
I'll vote aye.
Wes?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carried. We'll review and approve the bills at this time.
I got a bill here for paying Shannon Rose. Anybody know her?
That's when I went to NDSU, 4-H on Sunday to speak to the 4-Hers grade 6 through 12 about local government.
How'd that feel?
It went well. They were more interested in what the sheriff does, of course, versus the auditor. But it was myself and then the Burley County Sheriff, a Bismarck City Commissioner, Morgan County State's Attorney, Travis Fry from Beulah Mayor, and then the Morgan County Recorder. So it was a nice rounded panel, and it was fun.
What grades?
6 through 12, they learned like parliamentary
time you have to get a uniform and a hat, then you get more attention and a badge.
No,
Well, I
you
have
just need
the
the
name
light.
tag, but I couldn't wear it because we played a game show and they had to try to guess what you do, so I had to keep my name tag on.
Oh,
All you need is lights and a siren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. You're way more interested in
Yeah.
that.
Big badge on the team.
It was good though. Travis Friday explained to the kids like the difference between a city commission and a city council and about the voting, you know, the voting rights and stuff, and yeah, he did a good job.
I probably should have went to that.
Lisa Mayor Evers, she's a judge in the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
She spoke to them for an hour. And then they had some
Wow.
legislators come, and then on Monday they spent the day at the Capitol.
Oh, what the world?
The Legion has boys and girls, what did they call that again? It's government week. You know, we sponsor them, they go down to Wapaton for 1 week and they actually play president, vice president, they play government, they actually vote in their, you know, all their officers and stuff and, but it's not very well attended, but you know.
Kids aren't interested in that kind of stuff. I never was as a kid, but like, you know, you were. Yeah, what's that club that was in high school that you could go to that did parliamentary procedure and stuff? Not FFA, there was another one. I don't remember what it was called. Huh? No, it wasn't student council. It was something Jan I used to. It's interesting though. It's interesting how many kids don't know anything about any of that.
Whose pickup here had damage to it?
I think,
2004 Chevy Silverado.
since the door was sprung, I don't remember whose it was. It was road department.
Wonder if that's that Dooley? It's been sitting down by Krebs for about.
Yeah, that must be it. That's
Yeah.
that's who did it.
Yeah, been sitting there.
Rachel notified me about it, but I don't remember who did it. I don't think they could control, I think the wind just took it.
Wind in North Dakota? Jesus, Krebs auto body. We're talking about government days, I recall, I went to school in South Dakota, even though I was in North Dakota, but, we went to the courthouse and I think there were 3 or 4 different schools there, and they had a mock trial. It was a lot of fun.
That Martin County State's Attorney was talking about a mock trial that they had. I don't remember where they do that. It was interesting though.
Yep.
Those kids are really interested in stuff like that.
It's active, you know, it's moving.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning. No, Coffee sang him the Law and Order song. It's kind of silly.
The what?
He sang him the Law and Order song, like before the show started. I went to this government, Pittsburgh Federation on Sunday. And I had to tell him what my job was and this different elected officials. And then we have this sheet where you have to match our names with our description. So he just like reads it off, handles felonies, misdemeanors, and then the kids all bust up laughing. Oh, no, you do. He was a street security guy. Yeah, the other ones.
Yeah, actually, they're having their FFA judging in Beulah this weekend on Saturday. That's kind of fun to help with that too.
Is that up at the fairgrounds?
Well, you go to the Zion Lutheran Church to start out with, and they assign different, last year and this year last year I was on, there was a board of us, kids come in with businesses, they have to sell their business to you. You know, they come in teams, and they have to have a market plan, and some of them are really good.
question about this Association of Counties bill for drug testing. Is that for employees down there?
No, we are in a, we pay them, but we do it through Global Soft Drug Testing. It's a company out of Grand Forks, so they set up all my randoms. They email me quarterly and say, you have to log into my account, and they have 2 names in there usually that are pulled for random drug testing for DOT. So Global Soft does the work. They're hired through NADACO. We pay NADACO for it.
So these 2 people that were drug tested, where did they work? Do you know?
They would work for the highway department.
Okay.
It's quarterly.
This is our company though? Okay. Just
And then
curious.
we pay them also for pre-employment drug testing. Yeah, this is all.
You just keep adding them and adding them there. Wes.
Well, we're getting down to the bottom here.
Any more word on that electrical line that was not working?
No, so far it's working.
One leg of it anyways?
We're not gonna have no more staples either, are we, Bismarck? Or?
Or
Staples.
Payless shoes.
Payless shoes, staples.
Maybe staples is going like the way in plastic straws or something.
Oh,
Like what? My copy machine does do staples.
yeah,
You gonna quit now or what?
Yep. It'd be a discussion. Yeah. I think we need to have a discussion. Morning, Candy.
I think you wanna have this copies made and shit, I know to all my employees.
I'm gonna ask her to give it to all the, I'm gonna ask her to do that here too.
Oh,
When I give my report, I'll give my report out.
Okay. That's all I was gonna do. Okay.
Morning, Ken, Elroy.
Okay, can we have a motion to approve the treasurer bills?
I so move.
Just approval.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? Any discussion?
Don't wait yet.
Wes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Marv?
Aye.
Wayne?
I'll vote aye.
And I'll vote aye, motion carried. I will have a motion on these regular bills.
So move, Mr. Chairman, pay the regular bills.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Wayne, how do you vote?
I'll vote aye.
Wes?
Aye.
Marv?
Aye.
And I vote aye, motion is carried. Okay, we have a few minutes. Go down to the bottom, duplicate warrants, number 38,524 for $747.71, and 38,649 for $1,088.16, Nampa. We have a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve them for further discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
What's it about?
They lost the check.
So you have to,
So is that in this,
They had some issues
is that this
last
year?
fall. No, one check was issued on 10/17 of 18 and the other one was 11/9 of 18. I
Oh.
think they had somebody else taking over their accounts or something at that time and they lost it.
so how, did you catch it because they weren't coming back and you called them, or how did,
Well, they call us.
did they call you?
Well, they kept showing, the bills kept showing up on our, every time they sent
Oh,
us a
okay.
statement, and then
Okay.
we'd let them know that we've already paid it,
Oh,
and they
sure.
never received the check,
No.
so.
Okay.
And they have to sign, they sign off on this
Right.
resolution stating if they do
Right.
fund that check, they can't cash it.
Right, yeah. Mhm.
So,
Any more discussion? Wes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Marv?
Aye.
Wayne?
I'll vote aye.
And I vote aye, motion is carried.
pass this down to Dwayne.
One item that's on the other business
Can you sign that for me, please?
is the referring the storm policy to the policy committee. Not going to spend a lot of time on this. I know there was a lot of discussion at the last meeting. But some discussion was to refer to the policy committee, but there were no recommendations. So,
I recommend that it goes to the policy committee. We couldn't agree on recommendations, but
well,
what we have doesn't work.
what do you want them to do?
What are my recommendations?
Yeah. Well, I think Dwight's on that committee, but
You want the policy committee to come up with a recommendation for you? Is that?
Well,
sense of your
I think the reason this came up was Dwight was asking us, what do you want us, he was looking for direction, from the commission. So, and I think that's only fair. It's not gonna be nothing official or nothing, I think it's just something, if we can give them a sense of direction, what we feel like, the policy committee can still look at it. And so it's just advisory, more or less, I suppose you could say. But,
I don't think that that's appropriate at this point because there wasn't a consensus. And so I think the policy committee can review the minutes, see the concerns, and see if there's anything to come up with. It may be to leave it, it may be to change part of it, whatever, but
Mhm.
after reviewing your concerns, I don't think to send it to them with directions appropriate.
If we came up with consensus today on what we thought would be a way to look at it, is that disagreeable?
Well, he's potentially looking then to change the policy, and there's a whole procedure to do that.
Hmm?
So you can't officially act, if that makes sense, in that a consensus somehow gives the sense that this is what we're going to do, and that's not the appropriate way to do it. So to have sheriff's department, chairman,
Yeah.
road department, and they can do that work for you.
Okay,
Come up
let's,
with a recommendation,
let's do that,
kinda like
just have them
planning and
review
zoning
it.
does.
and look at the minutes from the last meeting.
Well, I don't think we wanna micromanage them, you know,
No.
and the only reason this came up is because Dwight kinda asked for his direction, but this is fair enough, let them work at it, and, so I'm okay with that.
Okay, we'll, discuss a little bit about the, Golden Valley House. I've got an interested individual. I showed it to him last Sunday afternoon. He is interested in purchasing it rather than lease. And, I think we had it leased out before for $400 a month plus utilities and, but he wants to do a contract for deed. And I talked to Jessica this morning, and she indicated that she could work some language up that would be beneficial to the county and maybe see if he wants to take it.
So legally, we can do it, a contract for deed?
Yeah, what Dwayne and I were discussing was, the alternative would be to rent it or sell it outright, this is kind of a medium ground. To have him paying rent going in, ultimately, if this all works, we can get rid of it and he can have it. Without any other options or, you know, anything else on the floor. I think that's probably a good route to go. Some of the terms we talked about was that the, tenant, owner, whatever, buyer you wanna call them, would be responsible for maintenance, repairs, and everything in the interim. That we would look at a minimum monthly amount, he pay the utilities. And so ultimately, if it doesn't work out, we wouldn't be in any different situation than if we were renting it, but if it does, we might be able to be done with it.
And we had decided to repaint the place for probably $1,700 or $2,000. We're not going to do that now. He's going to do that himself. There was an older washer and dryer in there. We're gonna leave that in there. And he would rather end up owning the house. So anyway, I will.
What was the, go ahead, I'm sorry. What was the contract at Edam amount for?
50,000.
Okay, and how long?
Well, if we charge them 400 a month like the rent was before, figure 10 years.
There's no interest on it.
No.
I don't know.
I was gonna ask, my next question is, what's the interest rate?
That's up to you guys. I
Yeah,
guess.
oh yeah, I think we charge interest, you know, due to the discounted interest rate or whatever, but I spoke to a banker this morning, you know, he kinda recommended if we would do it, do like 20% down. You know,
That ain't gonna
and-
work.
And, in interest rate, I think it's like 5.25 now, but we do that a lot less. But, I do think we have to have a sizable amount down on the down payment, so that it doesn't get trashed and walk away from it. Then we got,
I can guarantee you, he doesn't have any money to do that, and he can't get it from the bank.
Well, and, but I had asked initially too about a down payment. Now, if we were in a leasing situation, we would have some kind of security deposit. So maybe it isn't the full 20%, you guys could look at a different amount that's held, you know. I don't know what we would, I don't recall what we had in there before.
We never required a deposit.
Okay, so
But we
could-
just had the terms in there, you know, that they were liable for anything that, any damage that.
Did you guys consider a balloon payment at any time?
No,
We're-
Full,
Yeah.
it would run full term for however.
or if this guy doesn't have any money.
I understand, I was just asking the question. Sometimes you do a contract for deed,
Yeah.
there's a balloon payment in 5 years, or,
Yeah.
I asked the question, I
He
understand
can,
that.
if he wants to pay it off in 5 years, fine, that's, he can go ahead and do
The
that.
answer is no, no balloon payment. I'm just getting information, Dwayne.
Yeah,
Well, and what what we can do if the board is so inclined is I can come up with some kind of draft. So we have a starting point and then you can go through the specifics of security deposit, you know, something like that for you to look at. And just start with the basic terms that we talked about and then once you guys are agreeable on that, we can present it to him and
Yep.
see.
I agree with Wes that something should be done as far as having some payments so they can't walk away. And you know this individual, so is there a possibility that we could get some kind of a down payment? And if so, do you have any idea how much?
I have visited with the individual. His credit rating is below 400 or whatever. He has no money to get from the bank. And the first thing here is we wanna get rid of this house.
Don't wanna do it again though, is he employed?
Yes,
Okay.
but, yeah, we don't wanna, but we either wanted to rent it out or sell it. So if we get rental money, it goes towards the house, right now, we're looking at repainting it for $2,000. Every month, we pay $116 in electric bill for
bill.
heating.
Yeah.
That way, we can maybe do away with that. We're just putting more money into it. And we're never going to get what this individual offered.
I think the offer price is fair, but at 10% and I'm sorry, we didn't have a 10. If we have a term of 10 years, and let's just throw out an example of 3.5 or 4%, has anybody done an amortization, what his payments might be?
No. No, this is very preliminary, so
I'm just running,
just came out, yeah.
the reason I brought that up is, I'm leading to, do you think he could afford that payment?
I don't know. He asked me what the rent would be, and I didn't give him a number, because I didn't remember what we had it rented for before. So, and I just talked to Jessica this morning, and she said she would work something up, and once we have something, and he's not ready to take ownership or anything until April. So we have some time here to
Okay.
work this up, and
So do you want it on the next agenda, or do you wanna wait until?
we'll see what Jessica has, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay. Well, we're almost ready for.
Can I ask one more question? Do you have a feeling about what you think he could afford? And the reason I ask that question, it might help Jessica with determining the term of the loan, whether it be a 10-year or 15-year.
I'll put something together and then we can go from there. Basically, if Dwayne was kind of thrown around the $400 mark, so we can do the math and
Okay.
figure it out, yep.
I mean, I'm not good friends with this individual, but I have his phone number. I can touch base with him and see, but right now he's renting a place in Beulah, and it's probably more than 400 a month. So I'll have to,
Okay.
we'll have to see. Okay. Next up is the temporary use permits, or permit.
Just one.
This is a renewal, I think.
Yep, renewal of a non-farm residence that's used as a rental house in part 1 of parcel 1 within the southeast quarter, northeast quarter of section 10, township 144 north, range 87 west.
That's that's a third or fourth year, right?
Yeah.
Third year, I believe he's been doing this,
And it was just a condition attached that they have to renew it
every year.
Yep.
Yeah, that came through planning and zoning that time, and everything looked really well, you know. It's been going okay, as much as I know, so I would make a motion to approve that again for another year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more questions? Any more questions? Wes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Marv?
Aye.
Wayne?
I'll vote aye.
And I'll vote aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
After you sign it.
Is there a fee involved every time they renew these?
Yeah, $100.
Huh?
$100.
Okay. Okay, got a few minutes here. I think, yeah, we'll, is it about the ZAP lots? What do you have, Wes?
Yeah, I was just kinda wondering where we at with that. I know we offered them back to ZAP for $1 a lot, if they responded at
I
all?
have not heard from them. I did, however, get in the mail yesterday a resolution for the Golden Valley lots. I have to show that to Jesse and collect their dollar, and then I forgot to send my check for their dollar. So that'll be on the next agenda, but I just got it in the paper here in the mail yesterday.
I guess, part of the reason I brought that up, because there was a couple of vacant lots, there was some people were interested in purchasing. And remember that? I think they called over here. There was one individual that had asked about buying a neighboring lot. It was empty. It was a vacant lot. And I had asked him to get a hold of the auditor's office. I thought he did.
I don't know, Jamie Boudelier is the only one that I've talked to.
Okay.
He came to the auction that day and bought the lot he wanted. There might have been another guy, but I don't know what they're gonna,
Yeah, but anyway, there was some interest in the vacant lots, and the other thing is, there's the lots, there's at least 3 of those homes that are gonna have to probably be taken down. I mean, it could be a liability issue to us. So if ZAP doesn't do it, we might have to do something with those.
I will,
I'm really concerned about the liability issue on them.
I'll call Cindy. She's not in all the time,
Yeah.
she's very part-time, but I'll get a hold of her and report back.
Okay.
next meeting.
Okay,
Well, there's no money in the budget to do this kind of thing, is there? So we'll have to think about that.
yeah,
It is not cheap, I guess, we found that out.
Hopefully City will take them back.
Did Stanton take the one in town here?
Where did they get a hold of me on that? Or would, I guess Ron didn't really know what an asking price was, so I just told him to make an offer of at least $1.
Well,
Get it back on the tax roll at least.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Maybe give them a call too. We wanna get rid of them.
I could do that.
okay, I think we're close enough to,
Yeah.
the opioid.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, Jonathan and, Matthew,
Sir,
morning.
Morning.
I present to county commissions all over the country, and this is by far the timeliest I've ever been in front of. I'm impressed. So I'll be respectful of your time, and we'll finish this on time. I've got a printed out PowerPoint presentation. Easy to do on the screens, but we can do it the old-fashioned way today. What do you need, the county attorney?
That would be me.
I figured it was you. Sorry, Curtis Olson.
If you have an extra one, give that gentleman another too.
Sorry. Sorry, Curtis Olson, our local consultant, couldn't be here today. His wife fell and broke her ankle yesterday. But he's the one that made the appointment for us to come speak. I'm here today to talk about the opioid epidemic. I represent 3 different law firms. We've banded together to take on the manufacturers and distributors of opioids. There are about 1,900 cases filed in the federal MDL right now for cities and counties all over the country.
Would you mind using one of the mics?
Oh, absolutely.
I think that one ain't, is that even, you can check, see that one works, since the cord is just.
We're green. Can you hear
There
me?
we go.
Oh,
Yeah,
there
thank you.
Understand, because we could move it up there.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. One of those guys likes to walk around when I talk. There are about 1,900 cases filed all over the country in a federal MDL. They're taking on the manufacturers and the distributors of opioids. So I'm going to go real briefly, because we do have some time constraints here today, to go through how we got here, what the story is, and why they're liable. So I'm here in Mercer County because you do have an opioid problem up here. You've got as many as 48 pills per person per year being sold in this county. Those are pretty solid sales nationwide. If you go to the next page, it shows the drug overdose death rate has gone from almost non-existent to 8 to 10 per 100,000 people. That is a 400% increase, which is average across the country. Since 1996, most places have gone up 400% as far as the rate of drug overdose death. These stats are from the CDC. You know what the opioids are? They're, OxyContin, codeine, hydrocodone, tramadol, those are opioids. And the reason I showed this particular slide with the prescribed opioids like this is these OxyContin, morphine, and heroin are all processed by the body the exact same way. The receptors in your brain receive them and process them the exact same way. And the reason I bring up heroin today is because when I say opioids, I am including heroin, because 83% of heroin users started off on a prescription opioid. They didn't start off putting a needle in their arm trying to kill themselves. They started off breaking an ankle in a high school football game, took a couple OxyContin, realized they liked it. Next thing you know, a year later, they're in jail for heroin possession. And that's how these things start. And that's why so when we're talking about damages, I want you to consider all the heroin damages as well. We're going to skip the next page with the opioid addiction by the numbers. That's a great thing to look back on. One of the really amazing stats to me is that 31% of working age men on a given day who are not working are on an opioid that day. It pulls members out of society. It pulls your taxpayers off the tax rolls. It takes productive people and makes them non-productive. And the reason it does that, the likelihood of addiction, if you take an opioid for 10 consecutive days, the likelihood you're addicted 1 year later is 20%, which is alarming because I had a 30-day supply when I had a root canal. That's how this addiction starts. If you take these drugs for 1 month, 30 days, the likelihood that you're addicted 1 year later is 35%. And these are stats from the CDC. These are not manufactured. These come from our own federal government. And what it's led to, on the next page, last year we had 72,000 drug overdose deaths. It's more than we've ever had before. It keeps going up and up every single year. That's more deaths than the entire Vietnam War combined in a single year to opioids. And you'll look at the next page, you look at this is drug overdose death rates per 100,000 people over time. If you look on the left-hand side, you'll see the heroin epidemic of the 70s, the cocaine epidemic of the 80s and 90s. Those pale in comparison to the opioid epidemic now, what's happening in our country. This is the rate of drug overdose death. This is not the number of deaths, so this is comparing apples to apples over time. This kills far more people than these other drugs ever did. And what it's led to, on this next page, you'll see poisoning, which is drug overdose, is now the leading cause of death for those under the age of 50 years old. Just taking over car wrecks, suicide, all those other things. It's now drug overdose death is the leading cause of death for anybody under the age of 50 years old. And what it's led to, for the third consecutive year, in the United States, our life expectancy has gone down. We are not living as long. You look at France, Germany, Denmark, they're all living longer. In the United States, we're not, because we've lost over 500,000 people to drug overdose death. We're not living as long in our country. Here's where we are on opioid consumption in the United States. The United States consumes 80% of the world's opioids. We are 7% of the world population, yet we consume 80% of the world's opioids. But it wasn't always that way. If we go to the next page, this is the opioid consumption over time compared to Europe. You'll notice, until 1996, we tracked Europe perfectly. We used opioids at the exact same rate as everybody else. But something changed in 96. All of a sudden, opioid scales started skyrocketing. And here's what happened in 1996. These manufacturers of opioids, we're talking about Teva, Janssen, Purdue, these companies, all multi-billion-dollar companies, changed their marketing habits. They came up and told every doctor, every medical school textbook, that the new formulation of the opioids are now safe for long-term use. They are no longer dangerous. They're no longer addictive. What they did was they pulled the acetaminophen out of it, which is Tylenol, because Tylenol is the leading cause of liver failure. So if you take too much with Tylenol in it, you're going to hurt your liver before you ever get addicted. But now that they remove the acetaminophen from the formulation, all of a sudden they're safe for long-term use. So if your back's hurting, you can prescribe it for long-term use. And then what they did was really dirty. They came up with the saying that pain is the fifth vital sign. If I walk out of here and hit by a bus, or more likely I go off the road in the snow because I don't know how to drive here because I'm from Texas, I'm going to go to the ER, and they're going to take my blood pressure, my heart rate, my respiration, my temperature. These are objective measures of my health. They tell doctors what my condition is, but they can't measure pain. Pain is subjective. You feel pain differently. And so they went and said that pain is now the fifth vital sign. And they said, Doc, you might be committing malpractice because you're not properly managing your patient's pain. You need to prescribe more opioids. You're committing malpractice by not prescribing more opioids. Doctors were trained. My father was an internist. He told me all about this. Doctors are trained throughout their entire lives, and medical school training, to be afraid of opioids. Opiophobia is what they called it. You always took opioids for like 3 days. I ruptured my Achilles tendon. I had massive surgery. It hurt like heck. I took some serious narco for 3 days, and then I stopped, and I would taper off with something else. That's how opioids should be used and were traditionally used. They were used for breakthrough cancer pain. My father was dying of cancer. Yes, at that point, they were putting fentanyl patches on him because the risk of dying wasn't that high because he was dying anyway. That's the proper use for these drugs. There is a place in the medical world for opioids. We're not trying to get rid of them. We're trying to stop them being used for long-term use. And what happened was when they started doing all this, they got in the medical schools, they got really, and they started getting doctors young, and sales began to skyrocket for OxyContin and other opioids. And so that's how the sales started spiking. And, on the next page, you see the smiley faces. If you are a drug addict and you want more drugs, and you walk in the doctor and say, how's your pain? What is he going to say? He's going to say, I have a bad smiley face. So you get more meds. The other problem with that is now we have patient satisfaction surveys. They're mandated by the Affordable Care Act. And so if you don't get the drugs you want, what kind of satisfaction survey are you going to give your doctor? You can give him a really bad one. He might lose his job. He may not get paid. He may not recover for his treatment of you. And so doctors incentivized to hand out more of these drugs rather than less. And so that's kind of put us in a bad spot. And this is the next page is a doctor from Purdue Pharmaceutical. This gentleman stood before Congress and said, addiction to these drugs is rare, less than 1%. He lied to Congress. And because he lied to Congress, they fined that company a record $634 million. They fined him personally $7.5 million. They lied, and we know it, the FDA know it, the DEA knew it. And so that's how we got where we are today as far as the sales. But next page is to show you the distributors of these drugs. In 1970, Congress did something smart for once. They passed the Controlled Substances Act. And what they did with the Controlled Substances Act is they put a network. They insisted that you guys, you main three distributors, they have 85% of the market share. You three distributors have exclusive authority to distribute these drugs. The manufacturers cannot sell directly to the pharmacies and doctors because they're too dangerous. So you have to create a system to track the sales and report it to the DEA and report suspicious usage to the DEA. For 38 years, they literally never did this. They would sell 11 million pills in a single county of 25,000 people in a single year and not tell the DEA. They would have an increase in sales of 98,000% year over year in a single pharmacy, and they would not report it to the DEA. In the state of West Virginia, they sold enough pills in a single year for every man, woman, and child to take a therapeutic dose 360 out of 365 days. That's remarkable, but they literally never reported to the DEA. And so the DEA started going after these guys. The DEA started shutting them down. The DEA started levying fines against them, filing lawsuits against them. And at this point, I want to introduce Jonathan Novak. He's a former DEA attorney. I actually saw him on 60 Minutes one night and called him the next morning and said, come join our fight. Because he obviously is a kindred spirit in this. He testified for both the House and the Senate on the DEA, how they prosecute these cases, and why they're not doing it right now.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, and thank you for having us. So my name is Jonathan Novak. I'm a former DEA attorney. For years, I was prosecuting these cases on behalf of the United States government. We were primarily at first going after doctors and pharmacies, and I think you've all heard the term pill mill. The operation, pretty standard, this was down in Florida, that's where we were doing most of our work, was Basically, a busload of people come from out of town. They go to a pain management clinic. They see one doctor. 100 people get off the bus. They see one doctor. Every single one of them gets the exact same prescription. This doctor is seeing patients like this, turning over immediately. Everyone gets the same prescription for oxycodone, for some sort of a benzodiazepine, and some sort of muscle relaxer. Apparently, if you take the three together, it's a high like heroin. Every one of them gets the prescription. They go to the other end of the building where there's a dispensary. And the dispensary fills every one of those prescriptions. They all get back on the bus. The person who organized the trip gets 10% of everybody's pills, and they all go on their merry way. The drugs got out into the rest of America through these kinds of things. But the reason that the drugs were getting out into America was because there was a demand already. We had created demand in the market. We had created addicts. So we go in, we get what was called an immediate suspension order. What this meant was, as the federal government, we went in, oftentimes literally kicking the door with guns, because very often when you're running a cash-only pill mill, your customers are coming in and robbing you. So you've got guns on the premises. We go in, we shut them down immediately. Unfortunately, every single time we took down a bad doctor or a bad pharmacy, another two popped up to fill the void because business was booming. We realized very quickly that we didn't have enough resources, and every time we shut down a bad doctor or a bad pharmacy, another two were going to pop up. We were banging our heads against the wall. Well, as Matt said, the Controlled Substances Act creates a closed system. A manufacturer, and that's who Matt was talking about before, the manufacturers who came up with this wonderful marketing plan. The manufacturers, when they purchase the raw product that's going to get turned into these pills, that's reported to DEA. Okay? They sell to what's called a distributor. That's your McKesson, AmerisourceBergen, Cardinal Health. What the distributors do is they get the pills from the manufacturer, and they have the license to sell it to all the pharmacies. So, the pharmacies get the pills from a distributor, and the pharmacies fill the prescriptions. But those distributors had an obligation under the law. Their obligation was to create a system to monitor and to report suspicious orders to DEA. Suspicious orders are defined in several ways, but the most prominent is when you see a spike in volume or an unexplained increase over time in the volume of sales of these pills going to these pharmacies. What we saw when we started digging a little deeper, and we knew if we shut down all the pharmacies and all the doctors, that's not going to solve it. We have to go after the distributors. So we started going after one of the major distribution chains. They were the distributor for one of the national pharmacy chains. We started looking at their distribution records, and what we saw was one pharmacy in particular that in January 2008 was averaging about 100 bottles of oxycodone a month. In January 2009, 1 year later, was averaging 10,000 bottles a month. That increase happened in the course of a year. Not once did that distributor ever raise a red flag, ever notify DEA of this increase in sales. And that was just one pharmacy. They were distributing to hundreds of pharmacies, all of them showing the same thing. So we went in with the same kind of immediate suspension order. We shut them down. We went in and we had the justification to do it because them operating that business unchecked was an immediate threat to the health of American citizens. We shut them down. They have a trial within 60 days where they have to come in and tell us why they should ever be able to send another pill out. We started subpoenaing their records. We saw their emails. We went looking for any sign that they were aware of these increases. Well, they were aware of the increases. They were celebrating it. The heads of this company were basically high-fiving each other over what a great job their marketing plan had done. One time, there was a red flag raised about an order at a pharmacy. The reason they were worried wasn't because, well, why are they ordering so much oxycodone? No, it was, does that pharmacy have enough space on the floor to hold all the boxes that we're going to need to ship them of oxycodone? That was their concern. They didn't report that to DEA either, and they did ship that. So we started looking at other pieces of information here. They were shipping to all these Florida pharmacies. In one of the cities, Oviedo, Florida, the sheriff had written a letter to this distributor. Please help us. This pharmacy that you're shipping all these drugs to has become an open-air drug market. We station our police there not just to make arrests, but because there have been 6 overdoses inside the pharmacy, including one where the customer purchased their pills, they purchased syringes from the pharmacy at the same time they went into the bathroom, they overdosed and died. Please help us. The company never responded. The board, the CEO, never responded to this sheriff's letter. When we went in and shut down that pharmacy, the prior month had been the highest volume sales yet. It didn't even raise concerns for them. They just kept shipping as much as possible. They made billions of dollars off of this. In that case, we reached an $80 million settlement, which at the time was the largest settlement in DEA history. $80 million, that was their liability. Well, when a company makes $190 billion a year, $80 million is not a thing. As Matt likes to say, it's barely a speeding ticket. So, we started going after the other distributors. We started having massive success. We were higher up in the food chain, and if these companies actually did what they were supposed to do, slowed it down, monitored the system, then we wouldn't have as much drugs out on the streets. Well, unfortunately, we were victims of our own success. The very companies that we were now regulating and going against in court, they began hiring all of the DEA attorneys to come work for them. Because who better to figure out ways around the regulations than the very attorneys who use those regulations every single day? We went from in 2011, DEA had over 200 enforcement actions. In 2017, they had less than 30. The companies effectively slowed down DEA enforcement. They hired the attorneys over, and then they rewrote the law. And if you look at the next slide, Representative Tom Marino, he sponsored a bill. He proposed and sponsored a bill. And what this bill was called was the Ensuring Patient Access and Reasonable Regulation. The Ensuring Patient Access is what this was sold on. They proposed that this bill was to ensure that when DEA tried to go in and shut down a distributor, that they weren't allowed to do it, because old women wouldn't be able to get their arthritis medications if DEA shut down these pill mills. That's not why we were doing it. There's no basis for reality, but they called it that. It passed the House without a dissenting vote. It passed the Senate without a dissenting vote. It was signed into law. The effect of this law was, in fact, that immediate suspension order I was talking about, where we go in and we shut down a doctor or a distributor because they're an imminent threat to the public health and safety. Well, now, when DEA has one of those cases, and they're about to shut down a bad doctor or a bad distributor, they, in fact, now are required under the new law to inform the doctor or inform the distributor, we're coming in, we have enough evidence to shut you down. You are an actual threat, we're going to shut you down. The new law now says that once DEA informs the distributor of this, the distributor is allowed to write what they call a remedial action plan. It's an apology letter. They are required to basically say to DEA, we didn't know we were doing anything wrong. We're so sorry, we're going to change our ways. If they write that letter to DEA, DEA loses its authority to regulate. They can't sue them. That's the law that was written. That law was written by my former boss at DEA, who now is a vice president at Cardinal Health. The law is still the law of the land. I was called to testify before the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives about it. It hasn't been overturned. They apologized to me and to the American public in these hearings because they believed what they were told. They didn't read the bill. They didn't ask DEA about the effect of the bill. They passed the bill because they were told it was protecting old women who wanted to get their arthritis medication. This is the law of the land now. DEA is not out doing these cases anymore. They're not able to do these cases anymore. I participated in a 60 Minutes and Washington Post investigation. I was on 60 Minutes, as Matt said. I was in the Washington Post. talking about these very things. It was because of that I got called by Matt and the firm that I now work for, Fears Not Chouati, to come and become a part of this. The federal government isn't protecting our communities. They don't have the law doesn't even allow them to anymore. So here's what we're doing. If you look at the next page, causes of action. We represent cities, counties, and states all over the country. We represent a significant number of counties and a couple of cities here in North Dakota. What we're doing is we're suing on behalf of these public entities for the costs that you have incurred that are direct and indirect because of this opioid epidemic. The number one cause of action here, public nuisance, this was the same cause of action that was brought against the tobacco companies in that litigation. The companies have created a problem. They've profited greatly off of it. And now our communities are left with the effects of their wonderful marketing plan. If you look at the next page, here's what we're suing for. Actual damages. Actual damages including cost of indigent care, cost of any county-supported drug relief, law enforcement costs, jails, litigation costs, Narcan. There's a public mandate in almost every community in America now that our first responders and our police officers need to carry Narcan. They need to. It's not funded. They're not paying for our officers, but every community, they're saying, this is what you need to have. Narcan is a drug that reverses an overdose. It's a lifesaver. Our first responders are being required to carry it because there's so many overdoses in America now that we have to have that as part of their utility belt. Narcan is a drug that cures an overdose that is made by the same companies that make the drug that caused the overdose to begin with. They're getting you coming and going. This is just one of these examples. We go to communities where they've had to hire more attorneys for prosecuting cases. They've hired more police officers, or just the cost of ambulance services. Any cost that can be reasonably attributed to the effects of this opioid epidemic, we're going after that. We're going after punitive damages because when you see the documents for the manufacturers and the distributors and what they knew and why they did this and how they knowingly did this, it's monstrous. We are getting punitive damages for that. We're getting attorney's fees paid for on these. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So on the next page, let me explain a little bit about what's called an MDL, a multi-district litigation. This sounds like a class action. It's not a class action. We bring individual lawsuits on behalf of any of our clients. We come in, we go over budget things, we put together a complaint that's absolutely unique to this community. We then our team works with your people to fill out what's called a plaintiff fact sheet, and that gives all the information about what our damages are, what we're seeking, what it looks like here, and why it's different than anywhere else. This is filed into a federal court in a multi-district litigation. As Matt said, there are 1,900 cases on file in this MDL already. They're not doing 1,900 trials. So the way that an MDL works is they do bellwether cases. They're about to do, there's a bellwether set for the end of the year, October. There is also a state court case brought by the Attorney General. It's all the same defendants. It's the manufacturers, it's the distributors, it's the retail pharmacies. They're all being named. These cases are going to determine the course of all the other litigation. So Judge Polster here is in charge. He's the one overseeing all of the, overseeing the MDL, overseeing all these cases. Judge Polster is looking to settle this. He's looking to solve the opioid crisis. He's trying to get everybody at the table. But in the meantime, Judge Polster very famously said in his first meeting with the attorneys, he said 150 people. Everybody looks around. What are you talking about? 150 people will die today of overdoses. 150 people will die tomorrow for overdoses. So when you come in here and you're telling me you can't meet a deadline, you're asking for a continuance, I don't want to hear how many days before you get me the filing. I want to know how many people are going to die between now and then. As Matt likes to say, if he was a defense attorney in that room at the time, he would need to change his shorts. This guy is very favorable to the plaintiffs. He really understands. He is in a community in Ohio where they have the drug problem is so bad that they have an orphan epidemic. in his community. They have an orphan epidemic because children are born addicted, and the hospital cannot discharge the baby to the addicted parent. They can't find a family member who isn't addicted. And so the babies are there at the hospital being held at night because they're going through withdrawal symptoms, waiting for someone who can pass a drug test, a family member who can take the baby. That's the community he lives in. He knows that this is a problem. If you jump 2 ahead, this is the litigation life cycle. This isn't just jumping in, we're not reinventing the wheel here. These cases have been going on since 2014. Our team filed the first 2 cases. This is the city of Chicago and the city of Santa Clara. Those 2 cases have been going through the litigation. Discovery has been going on. Millions of documents have been obtained and reviewed. Experts are being obtained. The depositions have been ongoing. Hundreds of depositions. This litigation is well on its way. And I learned an interesting fact this morning. The Oklahoma trial that's coming up, the judge overseeing that has said he is going to have the entire trial televised every single day. These defendants are about to settle. They want to get out of this. They do not want the public to know all of their dirty deeds. As you can see, on this, I mean, we're well ahead. Our team are on the leadership for the MDL. We are one of the 3 co-leads of this, and one of our team members is the architect of the tobacco litigation. He was the architect of the BP oil spill settlement. He was the architect of the Volkswagen settlement. He is on our team. He's at the table. He is going to be leading the settlement in this. I'm going to let Matt tag back in, and he's going to talk a little bit more about where things are and how we're moving forward.
I'm keeping an eye on this clock. I'll try to get out of here real quick. Purdue is already talking to the states about settling these cases. Publicly, I am constrained by certain gag orders on settlement discussions, but I can say some general outlines about the settlement. They're already talking to us about settlements. They're also already talking about bankruptcy. Purdue Pharmaceuticals is going to go bankrupt next month, and that's an important, or in May. That's an important fact. A lot of these companies are not going to make it through this. If all you make is opioids, and we sue you for opioids, you don't get to stay in business. And beautifully, the judge has allowed our RICO action to stand, which was a great advance in the settlement negotiations because that was the defendant's Hail Mary to get out of the litigation. So we can hold them all accountable all at one time in one trial. That's the beautiful use of a RICO statute. And so it's well known this is going to be most likely the largest settlement in history. This is going to probably dwarf the tobacco settlement. The discussions are well underway. Like I said, I can't discuss too much of them, but it's not if, but it's when. But I want to talk to you about the state of North Dakota. In North Dakota, I've run into a problem I've not run into anywhere else in the country. State Attorney General of North Dakota, like 23 other state attorney generals, has filed a lawsuit, but only against Purdue Pharmaceutical, one defendant. The one defendant is the dirtiest actor. Don't get me wrong. They deserve what's coming to them. But they only make $3 billion a year. They're about to go bankrupt. They know they're going to go bankrupt. The family that owned this company has sucked out $35 billion and hidden it all in Europe. We'll probably never see a penny of it. It's going to happen. But the State Attorney General in North Dakota has only sued Purdue Pharmaceuticals. And he's the only state AG in the country who's taken the next step. He wrote a letter to every state's attorney in the state and said, don't join this lawsuit. I have you covered. There's only one pot of money. Don't get in my way. Did you receive this letter? I've got copies of it. It's not a good career move for me to aggravate attorney generals. It's not what I like to do, but in this state, he's making a mistake. And I'm going to explain to you why he's making a mistake. Like I said, settlement discussions are well underway. There's going to be several rounds of settlements. There's going to be manufacturers, there's going to be distributors, then there'll be retailers. The first will be the manufacturers, the second will be distributors, third will be the retailers. It's a 3-part settlement structure. It's going to be money set aside for states, money set aside for states to provide to the cities and counties, and then money for cities and counties. But they're not equal pieces of pie. The cities and counties are going to receive far more money than the states do because they bore the bulk of the burden of this. So the state attorney general has advised you to stay out of this litigation. The problem is he's limited his recovery. He can recover for Medicaid. He can recover for things the state paid for. He can't recover for your ambulance services. He cannot recover for any addiction recovery support systems you have, your drug diversion courts, whatever you might have. And when I talk about these damages models, I'm going back to 1996. The judge is allowing us to go that far back because they fraudulently concealed so much. So statute of limitations is not limiting our damages model right now. And so we're going all the way back to 1996. So even on smaller communities who don't have a ton of damages, if you go back over 20 years, it really adds up. But we're not just talking about past damages, we're talking about future damages, abatement. We don't want to be back here in 10 years pitching the same story. We want to bring resources back to the community. We got to bring resources back to educate your kids so we don't make the same mistake and create another generation of addicts. No resolution to this case is acceptable to the judge unless it includes massive portions of this for abatements, for actually solving this problem, making sure 10 years from now we're saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened. What happened to us? What were we thinking? Much like the tobacco settlement in the 90s. Yes, those ads on cigarettes and TV and everything were annoying for a decade, but they were really effective. We have the lowest rate of smoking we've ever had before because of some of that education piece, some of those education pieces. So we're going to be doing the same thing with this. So I'll move right ahead to the sales portion of this. We want you to hire our law firms. There's 3 of us. We've banded together because we're taking on some massive corporations. McKesson makes $190 billion a year. They pay their CEO $645 million. We're taking on some really big fish, so we had to band together. Together, we've got several hundred attorneys, several hundred support staff, and the wherewithal and the resources and the financial resources to see this through the end. We represent cities, counties, and states on a contingency fee agreement. There are no circumstances under which the county would ever write us a check, period. No exceptions. We put up all the expenses. We are risking millions and millions of dollars that we're right, then we're going to win in this litigation. Those are risks we're willing to take. If we are unsuccessful, you wash your hands of us and you'll never see us again because we'll be out of business most likely. But there's no risk to the city or county. And if you were ever concerned about a risk, we also indemnify you against any sort of countersuit. It won't happen because the judge has already blessed everything, but I put that in there just to make sure everybody's comfortable with all these things.
And just to explain, it's a contingency fee. We start at 25%. That means whatever the recovery is, we would ask for 25% of that. However, we do this in a descending scale, meaning the more money that the county recovers, the less percentage we take. This is about making sure that the county gets their just due. So again, and the terms of that and the markers at which it descends, that's negotiable, we can talk about that, but it's a standard 25%.
And so on this last slide, I'm trying to go real quick. So the slide's over here. If we were to recover 1 year of income revenue from Purdue Pharmaceuticals, the one manufacturer that the state AG of North Dakota is filed suit against, that would end up being about $9 a resident in North Dakota. I'm suing 31 defendants, manufacturers, distributors, retail pharmacists. And when I say pharmacists, North Dakota is unique. You have a different pharmacy system. We are not suing your local mom and pop pharmacies. We are suing CVS. We are suing Walgreens. We're suing Rite Aid because they are distributors of these drugs. Your mom and pop pharmacies are not the targets of this. We're not suing local doctors. We are suing these massive corporations. We do not want to run healthcare out of your town. We need healthcare.
And I think it's very important to note, you're our client, we answer to you. If you would have the final say who we're suing, where we're suing. You would have the final say. If you didn't want to go after Purdue, you would have the right to tell us, don't go after Purdue. We don't identify and name a defendant without your approval. We'll give you our advice, but at the end of the day, it's up to the county to determine what the course of action is.
But we'll give you the best advice money can buy. But the county attorney will have to sign off on every single thing that we do and oversee us at every step because we work for you, not the other way around. And we tried to jet to the end of this presentation. So do you all have any questions for us?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
You guys don't mind? The damages you're talking about, the fact sheet you're talking about, which entities, who would you be looking at in our county to do that, and how would that work?
We're going to do the bulk of the work. I've got some poor associates who sit up right outside my office, and right now they hate me because this is all they do. But we fill out the bulk of the fact sheet for you. We do all the work. even for the smallest communities, we were able to find almost anything online as far as budgets and stuff go. I didn't understand that going into this, that it was that readily available. But we've been very fortunate, and we've done a lot of them now, so we're really good at it. So what'll happen is at the very end, he's gonna send you a list of a couple questions, and that's it. And it won't take you more than half a day to worry about the fact sheet. We're not asking for a lot of resources out of you.
What budgets online are you looking at? Ours?
Yes, if yours is online. I don't know for certain that yours
No,
is, but,
so that's
okay.
the credit.
Well, we'll be
There's
asked,
an associate coming to North Dakota.
yeah, I'll send him up here. I'm
In the dead of winter.
I'm gonna haze him a little bit and send him in the winter for sure, because I've had to do that too many times up here. I think I'm in double digits now on trips up here, so.
So we'll need to assist, but you'll have somebody doing kind
Yeah.
of run.
Absolutely.
You are not going to be doing the heavy lifting.
Okay. The damage numbers, you said ambulance, all that sort of stuff. We're proud to have a really good healthcare system. I'm glad you mentioned that, and our local pharmacies and stuff. To what extent are we gonna be utilizing them at all for some of these numbers, or?
Well, I guess, I mean, we're not going after them, but if they're, especially because of the type of community here that, you know, there's a great relationship with them, you may need to seek numbers from them. But on the flip side, you may have those numbers already at your fingertips because if they're the one that's billing, you're the one that's paying.
So through this, you guys haven't been having to do subpoenas to the local?
Oh, no,
No.
not a single time. I want them on my side. I don't want to aggravate them. I'm not subpoenaing anybody.
Ours, for a rural county, we've got some breakthrough stuff going on for our healthcare and substance, treatment and whatnot. So balancing this, I think will be important for us.
I want them to think of us as their allies. I want to prop up their budgets. I want to give them more resources. I want to bring them education pieces. I want to bring them, I mean, the judge in overseeing this litigation, he has this idea that he's actually going to build hundreds of regional rehabilitation facilities. I don't know if that's feasible, but I mean, that's the kind of mindset they've got in this thing, that the job is to solve the problem. This judge said, money's going to change hands, but it's not simply about money changing hands. It's about solving the problem, so 10 years from now, this is all gone.
Okay, good. The communication issues and making the decisions and stuff, they meet twice a month. How is that gonna work as far as you guys need, you're in touch with me, of course, but how will that work for communicating as we go through?
If it's a big decision that needs to be made, we're gonna give you so much lead time. Understanding, government works slowly. I know that firsthand. Government works slowly, and you have to give lead time. So we're not gonna be calling you up on a Sunday saying, we need this tomorrow, and it needs council approval. We're gonna give you lead time on things like that. However, much of this won't even get to that tier. A lot of this will be on the front end, we gotta get the suit filed. And there's no deadline for that, other than, obviously, we wanna get it filed sooner rather than later. And then the plaintiff fact sheet needs to be filed within 90 days, I believe, of filing the complaint. And then we're in the litigation. Everything after that is going to be, you'll hear from us if there's an order in which we need to get something from the county. And the judge would always give ample time for counties to get that kind of information. Or otherwise, we'll talk to you about, here's where things are progressing with settlement, here's where things are progressing with litigation. It's not going to be, I can't think of many decisions that would need to have that kind of approval. But again, we will always give that lead time.
The biggest decision will be, do you file in state or federal court? I'm going to advise you to file in federal court, because you're a smaller community, you'll keep the expenses down, you have the highest chance of recovery. So I think we make the decision today. I think for this situation, for your community, it's the best option.
Especially because you don't want to have to find a local defendant, because typically the local defendants are going to be a pharmacy or a physician.
Right.
And that's not what we're looking to do.
So that's the primary decision we have to make. Some places, like in New Mexico, I have some cases in really good venues. We file those in state court, so we can provide pressure from there, get different discovery rulings. But these are strategic decisions. Whatever resolution occurs is going to come to that federal MDL.
Okay, and that's my next question, you're talking about the distributors and whatnot, and the settlement and all that. Has any of this actually gone to litigation, or the success you've had has been through settlement?
In terms of my DEA work, that went all through litigation.
No, the settlements that you've been, or maybe it was.
Oh, no, so the settlements there were when I was working for DEA, and those were fully, like, some of those were fully litigated cases that on the eve of trial settled.
Okay, has anything been through trial then?
No, the very first trial is scheduled for May. The judge is insisting on putting that trial on TV. I don't think there's any way in heck that trial is going to happen.
Okay, so
They're-
if there's not been in any
they're gonna settle that case before that stuff gets on TV.
I was just curious if any of them.
Yeah,
got out.
so not in the MDL. In the DEA case law, I participated in several cases that went fully through trial that were distributors, manufacturers, retail pharmacies. So, and that case law is the absolute ground, that's the map that the federal MDL is following.
Okay, so that in that.
So there's
capacity,
precedent for
not
all of
yet.
this.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
It's nice when the federal government's already said, I got you for doing something you shouldn't be doing. So then the civil guys come along and say, hey, you said you did something you shouldn't be doing. So it's kind of, I'm not gonna say it's a slam dunk but the liability is really clear. It's just we're going up against some really well-funded people, so.
I like to say that the MDL is cribbing off of the work that I did.
Right, well, of course. Okay, that's kind of the gist of what I got.
Okay, we have to move on here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just ask one question. I'm assuming you're visiting all the other counties, not just us.
Yes.
Yeah,
We have
what- how-
9 cities and counties in North Dakota already, presented to 2 yesterday.
We were at McLean yesterday. Yeah, we've been going to as many counties as will let us in the door.
How well is that being perceived or the interest on that?
Almost everyone has hired us so far. There have been 2 that have said no. They said, look, my AG says not to do it, so I'm not gonna do it. And I'm hoping they'll revisit the situation later if more counties sign up. But almost everybody.
Almost everyone else has signed with us.
Which 2 counties are those?
Stutzman was one of them. I can't recall the other off the top of my head.
And what kind of timeframe, obviously, we're not making any decisions today, so what kind of timeframe would you need to hear back from us?
First of all, we'll get a proposed retainer agreement to you probably today, so that you can start reviewing it and ask any questions. Understanding that you would need to vote on this, obviously, and you said you meet every 2 weeks. We'd love for the next meeting to have a vote on it, and we can come back out if you have questions and you want us to come and speak more. There's no rush. You have as much time as you need to make a decision, but
Yeah,
you've got to make a decision.
but, yeah.
We believe the first settlements will start happening this summer.
Okay.
And so we need the time to get cases filed, get the damage amounts built. And so when we come to the settlement conclusions, we can better monitor that. I know we're out of time, I'm so sorry for that.
I have a question too, please. You said that Attorney General sent Jessica a letter.
Yes.
Did the Attorney General also send you guys a letter?
No, we didn't. We met with him personally. Very nice guy, very sharp attorney, very sharp guy. He and I just have some different ideas about how things should be done, and I have different motives than he does. I'm trying to, I'm not running for office again. I'm not doing anything else, and so I don't have the same constraints he does. That's all I want to say about that.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Travel safe out there.
Next up is road issues. Ken? Morning.
Morning. First is outstanding road accounts. According to mine, I don't have any that are outstanding. Is that what you guys are showing?
Right.
Okay. And the next is tar tank elements discussion. We, with our tar tank for our Craxi oil, we're finally able to get those 4 elements out. Now we just have to get replacement ones, and the replacement ones are $1,494 a piece, and there's 4 of them. So total of that would be $5,976, and then you're gonna have freight, and they come out of Washington State. I talked to Dan yesterday, the salesman, and he was trying to get me a quote of what it would cost for shipping, cause they're 15 feet long, so he said they would have to go on a truck, so he never got that to me as of this morning yet, so, but I do have the price on the elements.
So you have this in your budget, sort of,
Well, I can-
whatever has to be?
Yeah, somewhere I'll have to pull it either, I would have it within the budget.
Without them in the tank, you won't be able to.
Nope. Won't be able to do any crack sealing.
Did he need a motion on this, or? Okay. I'll so move, Mr. Chairman, that we go forward and order these elements and get this installed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? Any more discussion?
Where do you think you're gonna, get it from your budget then, Ken? Or out of-
I have some of the line items, like either, it might have to be gravel crushing, can't be out of the mineral rate part of it, but out of the gravel crushing if I have to, or
Repair?
a little bit out of the oil thing too for the crack seal if we have to, so I can, there's a couple line items, I guess.
You're just gonna have to do a few more projects for the
Have
community.
you ever replaced these before?
No, they've been in there ever since, I think that tank's 30 years old, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I never.
Okay, Wayne, how do you vote?
I'll vote aye.
Wes?
Aye.
Marv?
Aye.
I vote aye, motion is carried. Next up is the Dennis Lever, between sections 2 and 11, Township 144, Range 89 West.
You guys had asked me to look in past minutes. The only thing I found, for Dennis coming in front of the board was September 5th of 2012, and that was for a utility permit. I didn't find anything, in regards to this section line at all.
Mrs. Flemmer Gray is here.
This is a horrible tracking. I did find a journal that I journal in, and we were in here with the county in September of '09. Roy Brown was here, Ed was here. Roy Brown said it was a section line, Ed says it's a dirt trail. We come to the county, we asked why they don't blade it, why we can't have spoil. The county commissioners told us it was our land, do with what we wanted with it. We fenced it off, we grazed it. In '08, they quit blading it, maintaining it, because they said it is not a county road. So we fenced it off. People have driven through there, shooting deer, wildlife. They have ricocheted off rocks and hit by cows. I want it blocked off, it's my land. I maintain it. We have one neighbor driving through it. One neighbor.
You were going to say something, Jessica?
Well, I think the information before was that they had spoke to me, which I didn't recall, but that's why she went back as far as she did was, I took office in 2011, so I think Shannon will have to look back
I
further.
went back through 10, because I wasn't sure if it started in 10 or 11, but this is what I found from 10 forward.
And what I have is this has been designated a secondary road on our plat map. It was there, I think, before County Road 13. It's designated as a minimum maintenance road. It previously had been used as a bus route. So it's been used by the public in a prescriptive road. So any potential closure would have to be something formal, but I think we're putting the cart before the horse and we'll need to look at specifically, because that predates myself, but based on what the information I have now, it's designated county road.
So,
Just for my information, is that, I'm not disputing anything. It was designated a county road because of its use as prescripted and so on. Is there a process where you can unprescript it and make it? Because it hasn't been used for, there's a process to prescribe it as a road, it had been used for whatever, and if it hadn't been used for all those uses
If it's a
since
county
then.
road, why doesn't the county blade it? Why did they stop in '08?
Yeah,
Well,
We
and
bought
that's,
the land in '03.
okay, I'm gonna answer your question. As I understand, it's been designated minimum maintenance road, right, Ken?
Yeah, there is a sign up on the
And
south side of it.
ultimately, it's not unlike any other road we have, any other section line we have, that it's ultimately up to the discretion of the county to the extent of maintenance.
But the only reason they put up minimum maintenance is because of my liability issue. I said, if somebody drives down there and hits my cow, who is liable?
It's not just your liability issue, it's also ours
But
because
the
it's
county
our.
then put up a sign.
Okay, but that minimum maintenance designation is also up to account for our potential liability as well, to notify the public on that road that we don't maintain this, so kinda traveler beware sort of thing. So that if there's something in the minutes that's been done by predecessors, we need to clarify that. I can just go on the information I have, which is, it's
Then
designated
why did
on
they
our
tell
map.
me in '09 that it was my land?
Well, ma'am, I don't know, I wasn't here, so we'll have to look at the minutes and see what's reflected there. Because it is your land, but the public right of way, the ability for the public to travel it is what's been done by prescription. So it's still your land. It's not unlike some of the section lines where the landowners own the land and it's an easement versus us owning or taking over the right of way. So, but I think we need to look at that because right now the information, it is what it is, same as you.
Well, apparently something in '09 was said at the commission meetings about
They
this.
told us that you guys, you two were sitting there.
No.
Who?
Roy Brown, Wayne Enzi, and,
No Shire would have been.
I wasn't on that time.
Ed was on there. Roy Brown was the main one because they quit maintaining it. And, we wanted to put in cow crossings. He said, your husband works for the mine. Go put them in. $6,000 a piece will charge you. We don't want cattle crossings.
What did the commission say?
So then they told us it was our land, do what we want with it. Fence it off, cross it off.
So that should be in the '09 minutes somewhere.
Well, but see, and that's the thing, it's a public road, and so it would have to be closed by petition and public hearing and whatnot.
That's
So
true.
that process wasn't followed.
That
It's
wasn't
still
followed.
open.
It's still open because it
Right.
hasn't been through the petitioning.
So, we have to see what, if she's going off of her record, we have to
Right.
go off our official record to see what was done. So, I think we need to table it until we can do that. Cause I've looked and we've reviewed what information we've been able at this point. We gotta look at whatever might come still be out
Do
there.
you remember anything?
I just have one question.
Well, I
I was
know
told
that
at one time if there's even though the section line, even though there's a road that goes through, it isn't quite on the section line, if it's off the actual section line, cause there's many of those out there, that's grandfathered in.
Well, that's the prescriptive easement, and that's where these things come up, is the straight line of a section line isn't always easy to travel. And so years and years of local people and whatnot going around and whatnot has developed that to be the public right of way, prescriptive easement. And so a lot of times these things pop up all these years later, and it's just been that way forever. It's been adopted by the county. And so now here we are, but we have to recreate and see what history there is. I suspect, because this is the most current plat book, it wasn't formally closed, whatever it was in '09. But I wanna see what record we have from '09.
Because, right, you'd have to petition that and get,
Right, and go
yeah.
through public hearing and whatnot.
And I believe you're right. I don't recall that happening, so.
Because I would expect we'd have something recorded and whatnot, but we have to see what was
What was done.
discussed.
So I don't know if we're talking about the same road.
Well, I'm talking about the one.
Because the people that are coming up, we have double fences that are 5 feet apart. They drive their four-wheeler up and come to the back, this back minimum maintenance road.
Are you talking about the east-west road or the north-south?
Must be the east-west road.
So
Oh, okay.
you're talking every section line should be opened up.
No, I guess I was referring to the one going past Merle's going north, is the one I thought that was a.
Both
road
of them, they're coming up, both of them.
But that particular road is not on a section line, section line's about 200 yards off, right?
It's way off. The section line is way off. It's not on a section line, it's on a quarter line.
So are you referring to the east-west road or the north-south road?
Both of them. The people are coming up between
Now
the
you-
fences. They have tree blinds set to the back, and they come up through the fences, and they wanna come on our property, all the way down, and they're claiming it's a section line. It's right beside Melissa Smith's house. So if she wants to lose 15 feet of her house, we can move that open section line, and I will be going through there too.
But you're talking both of them. What we have in front of, or what I see in front of me is between sections 2 and 11.
Can I show you the map I'm talking about?
Yeah, 'cause I got mine here too, so.
Okay.
And we're talking about the one between 2 and 11?
Melissa Smith lives here.
Which section are you in, 2?
2.
Yep, okay,
There's a double fence here between Merle Booping and us.
Yep.
And it's like
that's a
5
section
feet
line.
apart, enough to fit a
33 on each side.
That's what you told me. So each one of us loses 15 feet, so she will lose 15 feet into her house.
Each one loses 33 feet.
33 feet.
33 feet
From the
center
center
road
goes
out.
33 feet both ways, so it's 66
So
feet.
she's gonna lose her house.
Well, I don't know about that, and it wouldn't necessarily, the issue is that the public has to be able to
What I'm
go
saying,
through
if
there.
we're opening up section lines, we're opening up this one too. This one and this one.
Well, I can look at this, I don't know, we're just talking about this for today, but I can see what this is.
This is the one they're running up. I had it fenced off, so my cows, when they get out, they don't get into our whoopings. We have double fences there. So when they break out, they don't go out of County 13. They tore down my fences. They run with snowmobiles. They have blinds set up back here hunting on my land. I need to stop it. This is gonna be section line, I'm gonna be troubling it too.
Well, we'll look at this, I don't know, we were talking about this road, so I'll have to look at this. I don't know if that's been, I don't know. I'll have to talk to the deputy that was out there to see. I don't know if it's encroached on, and even though you own that land, that's fine, it just can't be encroached that somebody can be walking across there, you know? So I don't know about that one. I'll have to look at it, but we can get back to that one when I come up.
Right, you guys are talking about something I'm unaware of, because you're talking two different things. What's on our list here is between sections 2 and 11, is that
Well,
the?
and it's
is that
both
the-
of them, because this is the prescriptive easement. Huh? Oh,
I put
This is
rails
the-
by the back
ma'am, wait, let me,
fence line because they keep coming through and I have cattle there.
Understand?
Chairman,
She called and threatened us to burn down our
Ma'am.
rails. Sorry.
I'm gonna call for a point of order here. This is the one I was looking at, this is the prescriptive easement road, the minimum maintenance road, that's been designated as such. What she's referring to now is this section line, which is also between 2 and 11. And this is the farmstead at issue. I don't know if there's encroachments or whatnot on there, I'll have to talk to the deputy, but what she's referring to is this. This is the section line, needs to be open for travel, even if it's walking, whatever it might be. The other issue is this one. So we'll have to look at the minutes, and I'll have to touch back about this particular section line, because I don't have that information.
Okay,
Okay?
yep. Thank you.
Yep.
So that'll be on the next agenda. We'll see what we come up with there. See if the minutes have anything in it.
March 6th.
Next, Ken, is the Elwine Estates cabin site.
I think it was last week, Friday, Elroy got a call at the office to go up and do a snow removal inside Elwine Addition for, I think it was a person that had to go to a doctor's appointment. So technically, if you read our road policy declaration, they would have to be billed for that because it's not an emergency service, it was a doctor's appointment. So I just want to clarify, I mean, when we come into Elwine Addition, we go the east-west road, and then there's this, the road that goes north-south, that's it. Within that subdivision, we do not do. And 2 bladings a year, when we were talking that, 2 bladings is for gravel, it's not for snow removal. Snow removal is in addition, and we try not to, that's, when we did this a few years ago, one of the operators hit a power pole inside the deal, and the county had to pay for it, the insurance had to pay for it, so that's one of the reasons why we're not supposed to go into a private subdivision or a private road. And then, like I say, it says right in our road policy declaration that was signed on January 16th.
I actually got the call from the individual who was in the hospital in Bismarck, and what he was saying, his wife needed to get out and she couldn't get out. And so then I called Elroy about it and asked him to check into it and contact Dwight on it, and see what they wanted to do, but that was kind of the situation, that's how it all started.
So we did open the road.
Yeah, they did on Friday.
We opened it, it took about an hour and a half. So I don't know, do we bill them, I think we have to bill them.
I agree.
Otherwise, we're gonna wind up doing all these here housing developments. Because sooner or later, it's gonna get around that we're doing it for one, we're gonna have to do it for all of them. I mean, where do we draw the line? That's what we gotta know. What are we supposed to do and what we aren't supposed to do? That's what I want.
We have to follow policy. That's- If you have a policy and you don't follow it, you have to remove the policy. So we have a policy to bill them, we gotta bill them.
Okay, Ken?
That's fine with me.
Anything else today?
Nope. I'm good.
Okay, well, have a good day.
All right, you too.
Don't get stuck.
Yeah. Damn winter every time.
Till the wind picks up, you'll know when.
We're gonna take a recess for 2 minutes.
I'm gonna hold you to that 2 minutes.
Next up is Carmen.
Okay, I want to, I'm here to talk about that estimate of cost for our parcel map, development of that parcel map, which actually would include all my GIS information from the 901, plus the parcel work. And what I did was I made you guys a copy of what was sent to us by Sidwell. And just kind of the first page is kind of the down and dirty, so initial costs about $156,000 for getting all that data together, plus maintenance fees for, because it's also going to develop a website for parcel information that a lot of counties do. So then the public would be able to go online to see that parcel data. And I know Washburn State use theirs a lot.
Define partial data first.
Parcel data is where you've got your legal, people buy land, you've got the register of deeds, it's taking the register of deeds information, which is very, very accurate. Right now, my 911 data is not accurate, but parcel data is, and everything that's used into the tax assessor's office
Or change
is,
of,
is the
Change it.
data they use. So you go in there and you buy, let's say a person's gonna split out 180 acres
Right.
of their land or a, whatever, 15 acres, whatever. Then they take that information, do it with the register of deeds, and then take the parcel and split it up within the tax assessor, right? So that is taking our data and basically putting it into a computerized database. Because right now, it's well, we have, the basic in a computer program that they can look up stuff, but they don't have it in a map type database.
Would that also show the zoning for that?
The zoning would come through because every parcel is also connected to the fire, the ambulance, what it's rated in the zoning. That's where that information comes from. Then what you can do is take those layers that they develop and develop maps from that. And then you get your zoning. You can get a lot of different maps. They would make my fire zones more accurate, and it would be put into the tax assessor, which is also connected to the auditor, which is also connected to the treasurer, when it comes to value of the lands and the parcels. So anyway, to get,
Wow.
to get all of the data together and put into this system, the initial cost, and this is a budgetary figure, is $156,000. So you're talking about $157,000 to put all this together. So that establishes your database. But once you do that, you need to maintain this database, because if you don't maintain it, it ain't worth it. So we went, because we wanted annual maintenance, so any parcel divisions or anything, they would use Sidwell to do that. And then you've got your cost, and also the web needs to be maintained. And it's just any maintenance on this system would come up to $13,700 a year for maintenance.
What's our county's, wrong word, but I can't think of another one, what's our county's cost if we don't do this?
We'll be like we are right now.
Which is,
Where we are right now. You have a
you know,
system
I'm just
in
being
place.
I'm very facetious. I like everything on the computer, but I'm just asking the questions, so is what we have not working well at all, or?
No,
be-
no, it's working, it's working. The reason we even looked into this is because the question came up about the zoning map.
I asked
And
that
you're-
question,
You
yep.
know, granted, you could get a zoning map, like, and I believe in the past, what they did basically is take a map and they drew it in.
Mhm.
And I don't have data to create a map like I do with my roads and my locations. In order to get maps like I make with roads and locations, for parcels, this is what you'd have to develop this parcel database. Then I can take that information and develop your zoning maps. But right now, I believe everything works. That, only came up because Commissioner was asking about zoning maps.
Yeah. I initially asked that question, so just so everybody knows, so. Mhm.
But at least you have an idea of what it's gonna cost. You don't have to do it tomorrow, we don't have to do it in 5 years, maybe we can afford it then, But, just, I guess to me, it was a look and see how much it would cost, and also that maintenance, and I wanted to make sure we had that maintenance fee in there, because you gotta maintain it. Any database you develop, you have to maintain, or it's a waste.
And that'll be a total cost to the county, that's 157?
Yes, yes, this is a county expense.
Would this program at all assist with the 911?
No. I have my 911 data, and my database that I have is maintained by 911 funds, and I don't need this database to maintain what I've got.
Okay. Can we move that decimal over a little ways? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
about what you get then.
But
Well-
anyway, at least you have an idea.
Thanks for the
What was
information,
made,
Carmen.
and there you go.
How many counties approximately do you know that are using this? And you said Washburn, they use it a lot?
Washburn, I know, does. I know, I'm sure a lot of them are going to, but honestly, I did not look, I
Okay.
didn't go and do any of that work.
You did good work, thank you.
Well, I got a cost estimate, so,
Okay,
okay?
you bet, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Carmen.
Okay, we got a
Makes you sit down.
few minutes before the next item. Go down to other business, the wage step system. Wes?
Yeah. There's been questions that came up about if we're following our step system and the wage step system, and I asked Jessica to take a look at this, and I believe she sent a memo out to all the commissioners. You all got,
No,
you didn't? Oh. Okay.
I'm getting copies of it. That just went out yesterday.
The salaries of deputies, clerks, and assistants for the county auditor, treasurer, sheriff, recorder, ex-office clerk, or district court, and state's attorney must be fixed by a resolution by the Board of County Commissioners. Each of the named officers may appoint such deputies, clerks, or assistants in accordance with the budget, except none of the officers mentioned in this section may appoint as deputy or any other officer mentioned in this section. So, when you go through the step system, for what I understand, we have to, we have to follow that step system. We can't, if we're gonna go from, like an example of step 1 to step 10, we have to have the approval of the board. Is that correct?
Well, okay. What he just read is a specific statute. Basically what it amounts to is the board gets to determine how many positions we have and set that salary, okay? And so we can, as department heads, hire, fire who we want and whatnot, but you guys determine the necessity of the positions and the salaries of the positions. Now, and I talked to Shannon to clarify this, the pay scale, she looked at the minutes, that was adopted for 2017. It's not been updated. The issue would become if and I like to use my own department just because that's the one I know the best, but right now I have a budget set for Sandy, my paralegal who's been there forever, she's top of the scale. If I were to lose her, I could hire somebody new to fill that position, keep it within the pay scale or keep it
department head, we can't bind, the county to the salary. That is what is set by you. Obviously, each situation needs to be looked at and whatnot, but that's the overriding consensus. So where that's been maxed, that's what has to stay for that position without further approval of the board.
Okay, if a department has a deputy, and that deputy is maxed or near the top of the pay scale, and then leaves, and we have another person that assumes that position, can that elected official give that new person the same wage?
Yep,
Think
it
up-
can't go over.
But they can do it up to the pay scale that the other person had?
They could. And I'll give you another example. When I took office, the budget had been set for Jim's salary at whatever amount it was. I took office, less experience, the board reduced it. You know, so as long as you're operating under that, you know, that's the issue.
Right.
But when you can't go over it without further board approval. And the salaries are distinguishable from almost any other expense in a department. I mean, we deal with unforeseeable expenses all the time. You know, you heard Ken talk about his line item for this tar thing. That's a totally different issue though than salaries. Those are the positions we need for the year, it's set. Now, we have people leave, we might have to adjust. You have a veteran employee leave, filling with lower, there's room there, you know, but that max is set for the year, done deal, and can't be revisited without the board's approval.
Yeah.
I can't tell Sandy, I'm gonna give you five, you know, I carried over that $50,000
Sure.
for other salaries.
Right.
That was, you know, a salary line item, but not for her, so I couldn't say, I'm gonna give you extra $5 and take it out of there. It doesn't work that way for salaries. The number and necessity of staff and the salary is set by the board.
I guess,
So, and that comes to the second issue though, with the pay scale. A lot of us have been operating under that we've been following it and whatnot. It was specific to that 2017, and in talking to Shanna, she feels it's out of date. We've even found out that some had different pay scales, because there was different drafts. So after that 2017, I think the best way to say was it is guidance, but we need to,
I would recommend updating it. It was only $3,000. I know 3,000 is a lot, but really it's not. And it's, I mean, if you wanna use the pay scale, it needs to be updated.
you're talking about getting the consultant back in,
Right.
yeah. I kinda wanted to do that last year already, actually, but
Because otherwise it doesn't pay to use it. It's not up to date.
current,
It hasn't been done since she presented it to the board in September of 2016.
The year
well,
before.
3 years.
and honestly, that pay scale, I supported it going into it, but in practice, it's become more of a headache
Yeah.
than anything.
I agree.
Back before that pay scale, for my department, I would look across the board, comparable paralegal and state's attorney's positions, comparable positions to my girls, and come in and tell you guys what it was. That pay scale has proven to be inaccurate in a lot of ways. It's capped out at certain things. I don't know that it's worth it. And the process should be us as department heads coming in, telling you what our proposed budget should be for our department. We've had a lot of trouble of looking next door, you know, the office next door, but we've gotten on track of where things are more of what they should be, comparable for the position, not the next door office.
Okay, I agree with, thank you for saying that the department head should come into the commission and say that, we wanna hire somebody and this is what the pay scales could be. Do you also feel that if they change their pay scale, that they should come into the commission prior to changing that person's pay scale? Let's just,
I guess what.
let's just say, I'm gonna use a step, and I understand that's probably obsolete at this point, but let's just say you have someone working at step 2, and you want to give them an advancement. Should that advancement come into the commission prior to, or
Not necessarily.
can you, and if you had someone there,
If you have it in your budget, I think
Yeah,
you're
if
allowed
you're
to.
working within the parameters of the budget, it's fine, you know?
Mhm.
It's if you hit, let's
Yeah.
say that,
You hit the
let's
stop.
say Shanna's administrative assistant position, let's say that was budgeted at a step 3. Midway through, Shanna feels like she needs to move up to a step 6. She'd have to come in and say, because now it exceeds that step.
Mhm.
But if she hired somebody at a step 1,
Just
huh? step one had approval for step three, she could give a raise until she reaches that mark without further, notice from the board. Because the board has said this is the max we're gonna pay, we can operate under that umbrella. It's only after that max that we have a problem,
I can hear you.
okay?
So just going back, I didn't, on your memorandum here, if you say here, in the authority to adjust the salary of a deputy position in the department based on North Dakota Century Code 11-10-11, an officer does not have the authority to adjust the deputy's salary without the resolution of the board. Then it says C. Johnson in Ransom County, and I believe that, yeah, that dates back to 1906. And so filing the necessary of a deputy and the compensation be paid to a deputy is solely within the discretion of the board. Now, but to fast forward,
Inside the budget though.
inside.
Within the constraints of the budget, yeah, and that 1906 case is actually kind of entertaining in that it dealt with the treasurer's office, the treasurer had hired a deputy. I think the board had approved her salary for $30 a month. The treasurer was paying $40 a month and was trying to recoup that extra money. And there, I think even been discussion with some particular commissioners, but it had never been ratified by the board. And the Supreme Court said that the department head cannot bind the county that that $30 a month is what was done. So again, it's anything over that.
So, when you hired your deputy, Shanna, what step did you start her on?
When I hired Amber,
No, let's Gwen.
Gwen
Gwen
started.
started the deputy?
Yep. But she had 5 years of auditor office experience, I believe she started. But she was here when Tanya started her at step five.
Okay.
Or, she was
What-
here right when the salary survey was happening.
I guess what
So
I'm
that's
getting at
when-
is, when you hire men, you can hire them at whatever experience they have at a certain step.
Well,
And-
then
but-
the board had talked at one time that
Mhm.
they were gonna give the authority between a 1 and a 5, I believe. Or was it a 1 and a 3? I'd have to go back and look at minutes, and I don't know if it was ever in a motion, but when we had talked about hiring, the board was gonna give the department head the authority to go so far up the scale. But in like Jess said, it's ultimately what's in your budget to pay them. But she started, yes, at the deputy wage. At the time, whatever that was.
And then did you jump several steps then?
Mhm.
You a step at a time?
Whatever the
Okay.
overall increase was. The board's never given step increases since we've done this salary survey. It was to get everybody to 95% in 2017. 2018, we gave 2% across the board. In 2019, we didn't give anything. So the board's never based raises per department on the step level. Not since it was established.
So I see Brenda, you're here, with Heather, what step did you hire her at then?
Well, I hired her at, what was suggested by Shanna that I hired her.
For a secretary, but she moved to a deputy.
And then she's still going through her probationary period right now, and then she'll be a deputy.
Okay. And
She's technically a deputy now, right, at the first, like, after
No,
Cutsy
till after
retired?
March. She's a deputy, but she's not getting deputy wages.
Right,
until
because she's still on probation.
Right.
So
Wait
that-
a minute. If she's deputy, she should be getting deputy wages, regardless of probation status.
Well, we had talked about that, and Brenda felt that we were gonna leave her at the administrative wage until,
After probation.
right,
Is she signing as deputy, Yeah. is doing deputy duties? Just within the last month.
then
She needs to be paid as a deputy. Your probation status is irrelevant to the pay. You pay people for the job. If they complete probation, then they, get all those other things, but no, she should be getting deputy wages. So we'll need to review that and adjust it.
I agree with what you're saying, but isn't that the department's head's responsibility to ensure that if she's on probation and we agreed this certain wage, then until that probation period is over, that they wouldn't be giving her deputy responsibilities?
her employment agreement with her.
If I
I understand,
When I
yeah.
hired my secretary, though, I hired her at a dollar amount, and I said, when you successfully complete your probationary period in 6 months, you will get the dollar raise.
But that's within the secretary
Yep.
pay. So there again, we're operating in that step system and you can do that. But you have a separate secretary and a separate deputy. So if she's the deputy, she needs to be paid as a deputy.
Which I believe is the contentious subject of
Well, I agree with that.
Brenda wants to
You're
pay
on-
her something, but another department head doesn't agree with it.
Right.
If she was hired as a secretary for a 6-month probationary period, that was what her employment agreement was, I'm assuming.
Well, hers is tricky because she was hired and then a couple weeks in, she was on her own. Brenda had a medical emergency. Her deputy went out for medical reasons. So Heather was kind of just thrown in there full-time on her own after a few short weeks. She didn't assume the deputy title though until Cutsy retired, right?
And at that point, she assumes the deputy wage.
So
And I would agree with that, except for Brenda, we had talked about it, and she said that she was gonna leave her at the probationary wage until March. Which, and if that was the terms that her and Heather had agreed on
department
it,
head shouldn't have.
pre-employment, I don't know if we have the authority.
It
to
has
say-
not, really that's secondary, 'cause Brenda can't bind in that sense. The issue is at what point did she assume deputy and that's what we're to pay?
I don't know what day she became a deputy, per se.
Well, when did her probation start? Because that would have been the deputy probation?
Well, her probationary period as an employee.
So her secretary deputy probation is already the same, so we didn't go to a new probation term when she was promoted to deputy? Because that's how I think it should have been under policy
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whatever day she became deputy, that day marks the first day of her 6-month probation as a
Right.
deputy.
And should be the first day of deputy wage. Well, we're gonna have to review this.
I think maybe that's what needs to be done. Maybe need to sit down and take a look at it, come back.
Yeah.
Come back to another meeting, explain all of this, but, when the recorder's office, the deputy, budgeted salary is 43,613, is that correct?
Whatever you got there.
Yep.
So that would not qualify for the deputy wage.
That is,
It would come to about this wage.
yep.
How much would the deputy be per hour? Is it 25 something? So that's not even budgeted. Not on this sheet.
No, when you divide the total that was approved, 43,613 by 28, it comes out to like $20.96 or something like that.
Yeah.
Not 25.58. Okay, I'm gonna go back to what you said, and I agree that we have to go back and find out when this actually occurred. Actually, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like from when Brenda went into the hospital. Maybe,
Well,
okay?
it's when she effectively became a deputy. when she
Correct,
took-
right.
yeah.
And-
So
and-
we'll have to revisit.
Exactly. But we may all, if you say this out loud, you might know we're back there.
Deputize inside her own office.
Well, and that may be the case. We have to look at this and make it right. I mean, that's the bottom line. So myself, Brenda, Shanna, will revisit this to make sure we get this right. I didn't realize it was such a.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion here, and I would like to really see this, everybody take a look at it and come back and
Okay.
make it black and white so we all know what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
So we all have to know the rules, I guess. And I guess I also think that we need to probably start looking a little earlier into next year's salaries. Start working on it so slowly and see if we can't fix some of this stuff. Yeah, at least get ready for it. We don't have the money. We have to cut back.
Got a question out there? Ken?
Question I have is, how could that go from a position like, that'd be like me hiring a truck driver, moving that person in without posting, that position was never posted. I have to, put in an internal within the county and then go external too. How come it wasn't?
Wasn't,
But Brenda came in front of the board.
yeah, because wasn't this, Cutsy's retirement was anticipated, so Brenda had approached.
Was posted, the secretary, the clerk position was
she was gonna be spending with outside of her budget last year because Cutsy's retirement date got moved to the end of last year versus the spring of this year. So she needed to go outside her budget and came in front of the board at that time. And I believe that's suffice, I don't.
I guess I can't remember the process, but I just assumed that whoever she was hiring was gonna be the deputy. I mean, that was all in the process.
I think that's what you requested when you come in, wasn't it? Because you and I had sit down and figure out numbers of how much a part-time person would have cost you from September to December.
Don't department heads need to approach the commission when they wanna change somebody or have a deputy status position in their department? Let's just say you didn't have one.
But she did.
Yeah.
She did that. She came in front of the board.
Okay. But shouldn't that be the norm? I'm just asking. I'm just asking, like your department, if you,
Deputy, if Sandy could, you'd have the authority to go hire somebody in that position.
Because the board's already approved that position and that salary, so
okay, I got it.
I guess I'm not exactly sure. So we'll have to look back to whatever the budget, as soon as the budget hearing with this. So we'll look at this and get to the bottom of it, and we'll be reporting back. But I think until we have more specific numbers and dates, I think that's enough for now.
Okay, we'll move on. Next up is the sheriff's update. Dean? Yeah, we'll do the bids first. Did you review the bids at all?
Holy cow. Okay. Okay. Kevin Hosel from Hanover bid for 2012, 2969.
That is on what now, the
Bid for the 2012
Is it-
edition,
expedition?
2969. Russ Gress, we've got VIN number, okay, is it by VIN number? That first VIN number was 57120. Okay, Russ Gress, VIN number 57120, 3725. 3725, then VIN number 05696, bid of 3125.
What type of vehicle is that?
I have no idea. I'm just reading.
Expedition.
Okay.
That's the other expedition?
I think there was two, wasn't there?
Yeah, there are two, but.
12s?
I'll go to the sheriff's deal here.
You writing this all down?
Trying to.
Okay, I'll just copy yours.
This would be a bid from Yusef Debag from Illinois. The VIN number 57120, bid of 1268. 1268, the VIN of 05696, also 1268.
Is that 1,200?
Huh?
1,200?
$1,268.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
This is a bid from Ryan Taylor for VIN number 22436. 22436, this is the international, 1750. 1750.
What was his name again?
Ryan Taylor.
Thank you.
05696, the bid is $3,000. 3,000. This is for either, it's a bid for either expedition at $17.50. Either one at $17.50. Oh, sorry, it's from Brandon Dahl. And then the international, $1,000. That's it.
Okay, we have to allow the sheriff to review these, or is,
I have a question for the sheriff. Because I don't have any experience in selling these vehicles, and no history either. In your opinion, from past sales or going to auctions, are these values fair?
Well, the $3,000 ones are. Those are fair. The international truck, you know,
That's pretty cheap.
I think it is.
Would we be, okay, jumping to the international truck specifically then, would it behoove us to advertise that more statewide versus just countywide? Like I put it on Bisman?
Well, I think you're better off take it down to and get it posted with the auction in Bismarck
I mean, like
a month in advance.
northern?
When is that auction typically?
I think it's the third Thursday or something like that.
You're talking about the state auction,
No,
or you're talking about the?
the Midwest auction or whatever it is.
Yeah, they have it once a month, but I don't know when
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't know exactly what the date is. But, I mean, get them off the inventory.
Yeah.
You got fairly good bids for $3,000 for those vehicles.
Yeah.
I think the last one sold at auction for $2,800.
You could do it all, but just the highest bidder.
okay, one of them was bid was for one at 3,000, right?
Yeah, well, Kevin Holstall Russ Gress had a bid for each of the expeditions, and he had the highest. For the 57-120, he had 37.25,
Right.
and on the 56-96, he had 31.25. The next closest one is Colin Peterson for the 56-96, and that's at 3,000, but Russ's is at 37.25. It's higher. Do we need a motion to accept these or
Yes.
discuss them? I'm gonna make a motion that we, and this is just for the international. I suggest that I make a motion that we take that to the auction and see if we can get more money for it and not to accept the bid of $1,750.
And never know, later towards spring, a little warmer time, people, I don't know.
Well, it's not parked inside anymore.
I see that.
It's outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I'll second that motion.
Any more discussion on that? Any more discussion? Marv, how do you vote?
Aye.
Wes?
Aye.
Wayne?
I'll vote that. I'll vote aye.
And I'll vote aye. So that'll go to auction then.
I'm gonna rephrase my question, or probably just say the same question again. The expeditions, you said the $3,000 marks they seem fair.
They are.
Because of and I'm not arguing that at all, I agree with you, because I don't have any experience on that. But going to auctions, what's the typical price you might get, and what might be the cost that might be incurred that would be different there?
I think the last one we got 2,800.
Okay?
So, that's after the
and I'm sure they take a commission, of course.
Commission on it.
Right.
Commission, and you gotta
So,
travel down. and
Anything over
travel.
$3,000 for those vehicles is
Okay.
good.
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept Russ Gress's bid for both of those vehicles. Vehicle 57-120 for $37.25, and vehicle 05696 for $31.25.
You can throw the other one in the same motion.
There's no more left.
I thought there were three.
There's two
No.
expeditions and one international.
Oh, okay.
We
Okay,
could-
is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Any more questions or discussion? Any more questions? Marv, how do you vote?
Aye.
Wayne?
How would I?
Wes?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carried.
I was trying to invent another one in there.
I know you're trying to get another $3,000 out of them.
Dream on.
No, not this last one. Wayne did.
Okay, next up is, do you have any updates, Dean?
Well, it seems that there's something on there.
Pardon?
There's something on there for conflict, so.
Yeah, well, it's a chance for you to update your department if you had any updates at all.
Nothing, we're 5 people short, so in jail. As far as
Yeah.
that, we reduced down 5 more people, one other quit the other day. So anticipate another one probably moving in another month or so. So we'll be down to 7 total people short.
In answer to the item that's on there, I asked for that to be put on there, so we know that other commissioners never, it was mine. There's some areas that I would like, that I feel that we're having some conflict. And I think we're moving towards them. One of them is not consulting the portfolio holder on some of the decisions or processes when they come up. I just think it would be better for communication and transparency.
What are you referring to?
Yourself not calling myself or coming to the commission with possibly we're going to hire somebody, or just basically communication. That's all. Okay. And the other one is, and this is my personal slant on this, I'm having difficulty, I know I've talked to your deputies and they've been friendly, and I visited with you once too, and you said I can visit with your deputies all I want. I'm very much respect that a department head, especially elected department head, I cannot and I do not want to be the day-to-day business of your affairs, okay? So I want someone that I know that I can, and part of that ruling, the way I interpret it, is I need to work with the department head, not with his subordinates, because they report directly to him. So I'm trying, and I'm in the area now where he said, well, go ahead and visit with my deputies. I feel uncomfortable with that, somewhat. I mean, they've been very forward and helpful. I mean, extremely. Actually, when I come out of there, I feel very good about it. But I feel uncomfortable without you telling me officially that you're delegating them for me to go in and say, well, what about this and what about this, and go look at this. I'm uncomfortable with that, and to me, it's an internal conflict for me.
To talk to the chief deputies?
Because they're your employees, I'm very uncomfortable visiting with them about certain things, because it might feel like I'm suggesting that they do something, and I don't want to do that. That's your position to do that, and I don't want to get there, and I don't want to put myself in that spot. So if you telling me that officially that it's okay for me to feel free, respectfully to do so, knowing that you're the department head, I will continue with that.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
What you have to remember is that they are the sheriff in my absence. That's what a deputy sheriff is. So when I have 2 chief deputies, you can talk to them anytime you want. Whatever they say is what I say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? That's the law.
Okay. I have one other item. When you turned in your phone, it's hard for us to access you. And you did give me a phone number, but we visited back and forth. That was just intended just for myself. Would you consider taking your phone back or giving your number to our chairman so that we can possibly improve our lines of communication?
Well, part of this was, we went down to reducing the budget. You know, nickels turned into dollars, remember? So, I took 2 of them off there, one was mine. I can't afford to have the deputies not have their phones, they need them. Everybody in my office can contact me, state offices, federal offices, everybody can get a hold of me. I have 2 emails. And like I told you, Mark, after the last budget season, I do not feel comfortable not having other people around when we have a conversation. You can get hold of me. There's 5 lines up there. You can call up there, the 24 hours a day they answer. They'll call me right away.
Okay?
Well, you used to call me all the time, going back, I mean, we've been good friends for years, we've known each other for years. You don't do that anymore.
Nope.
There's no communication.
You can call anytime. All you do is call the office. I'll call you right back.
Well, I've been always known to say, okay, if I wanna call Wes over there, I call him and he answers the phone. But generally going back, I never did call you really, I don't remember any time, but you used to call me.
You call it. I don't even have any of your phone numbers in my phone anymore.
I guess, Gene, I feel the same way before you and I had visited as well. You had my phone number and I had yours but going down this road, it just violates trust between us. It just ruins, and that's sad that it has to be that way.
I agree with you, 100%.
I mean, why can't we get back together and, you know, cause this doesn't just hurt us. This, from us, it spreads out to the rest of the organization. And it's not fair to the organization, whether it's your department or any other department.
Well, and
And,
quite frankly, I mean, my staff are the same way. They don't trust the commission. At all. You know, I tried to have 2 different meetings prior to the budget being set.
But your staff has also been told not to talk to us too.
They've come here to the meetings. Now they won't even wanna go anymore. They said they're not gonna go. So here I am. You know, put this kind of stuff on and every meeting it seems like a bushwhacking. I'm available all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Anytime we wanna have a meeting, we can have one. Anytime.
As far as the bushwhacking goes, you should sit on this side of the table. We get it all the time.
Mhm.
So that's just part of the job.
Yeah. 15 years I never had a problem, 16 years. So, I don't tell you. I mean, if that's the whole issue of whether or not you can call my phone or not, you can certainly stop over to my office and I'll give you the number. Okay?
Okay.
I'll do my part.
Appreciate it. I'm done with my conflict. As long as you're up there, I'd like to know if you explained something to me, it was very helpful. And may as well say it to the commission. In your words, you put another person on as part-time and there was a logical reason, a good reason for doing it. You hired a person that had a lot of experience, or you put him on the payroll?
For who's this now?
Mr. McLeod, I think his name was? Explain that
You're
situation.
misunderstanding that, and I don't.
Well, I'm misrepresenting it, but maybe I do understand. Okay.
Including, let's say, John Tungy, the entire search and rescue team are all special deputy sheriffs.
Okay, yep.
They don't get paid unless they're doing something for us.
Mhm.
Okay, they fill out a voucher, then they get paid. They're not on getting benefits, they're not getting anything like that. I just appoint them to do dances, or if we need somebody that has a license to come to work for us, for a specific situation. We are lucky enough when we get retired officers that will be able to do that for us. But they get nothing else but straight pay. So it's not, you're putting them on the payroll to make sure if we need it, we can pay them.
Yep.
In the special deputy, that's where it comes up. And keep their licenses up to date. They do all the training on their own. They pay for all that, we don't pay for any of that. Okay? Except for John Tungy and Chuck Dahl, that we use quite often for court security or prisoner transports and all those types of things. They have uniforms that we've purchased for them. Because they're in court a lot, so they can't be wearing jeans and all that business.
Gotcha. I knew you could say it better in your words. I understood, I just didn't explain it well. I'm glad you brought that up. So that helps. That's part of the communication.
Any other questions for Dean?
Yeah, I just wanna say something, Dean. I really appreciate you coming in today. This is huge. This means a lot to me, and I think it means a lot to the whole commission. And, you know, I really would like to stress, let's move forward. Let's work together and communicate so we can build that trust back up again. And, you know, I truly realize you got responsibilities and jobs, and we have too, you know, but this is huge. I wanna thank you a lot for coming in.
Well, and you understand, I have a problem a little bit, this has been on sheriff's update on there, without my knowledge. I am under no obligation to come here to have a meeting, okay? I have no issues if you call me up and say, would you please come to the meeting and discuss something? That's never been a problem. I don't see any other department that's up there that says they have to come here and give you an update.
Well, Dean, if you recall, this even goes back 2 years ago in our budget season. We had asked all the department heads, if you spend anything over $5,000.
500.
You,
No, it's 5,000.
it was 5,000. 5,000, you come to us, just for informational purposes, even if it's in your budget. Ken does it all the time, and he gets tired of us hearing, we ask him the same question, is it in your budget? But I mean, it's just good communication. You've never done that. I mean, you did not do that.
We've had discussions, it maybe didn't get to you, but
Yeah,
it's
but,
been waylaid to read.
we were asking it to come from you or even the deputy. If you can't make it, have your deputy come in.
We are trying to comply with the budget as best we can.
And that was,
No doubt.
and that was one of the big issues, going back to the issues last fall, so.
And, you know, like Terry told you, we're already destined to fail. There's no way around it. You know, I lose one more person in the jail, and likely I'll have to close it. One more. I'll have no other option.
I guess I don't understand that, because you hired like 7 deputies since we had the hiring freeze, and that's all we asked you to,
No,
do-
wait a minute. Going back to 2015, and I know Shannon told you this, because her and I had this conversation. Every year I came in with the spreadsheet, wrote on there people who are gonna get hired. In 2015, was the first year we started, when we put people on halfway through and budgeted halfway through the year. Two, trade. 2016, the same thing. 2017, we're in construction. We've had that conversation. It was written on those pieces of paper when we sat and had the budget hearings, every year, okay? Now, there were some issues that happened with software and things like that, and DAPL was in there, that didn't reflect it, just like last year. That's not her fault, it's not my fault, whatever. It's an issue that was fixed. But every year, and we were getting to this point for 2019, when we were gonna have prisoners in jail. The only way that we could get there to be in compliance was to have those people. We even at one point in time hired an IT person. There was a deputy sheriff, did 4 different functions for very little pay compared to what they would have got. So now, those people have left. There's nobody to hire. There's openings in Bismarck, all over the place. It was just in the paper. 6 openings in Burley County alone, that pay more and have better benefits. Nobody's coming. And I cannot comply with the contracts. You know, I know Shannon and I talked, she told you, there was $500,000 coming in, plus our normal contracts now, which is extra $300,000 that we had got. If I have the marshal come in here now and inspect this jail, there's not enough people in, per prisoner. We will get denied.
You talking for Mercer County or for state or other?
For getting revenue.
Okay, no.
I've been taken, and now,
But we have enough jailers and stuff to take care of Mercer County.
yeah,
Okay,
I mean, we're right there.
understandable. Yeah,
We're
We're
at-
right there with our budget too, Dean.
Yeah, but that's not gonna help if we lose people, you can't hire them. You know, one just quit.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
I go by state and federal rules when it comes to the jail, okay? There is no exception. It doesn't matter what you think or I think. This is the law. This is what they demand. Okay? So, when they come up and do the inspection, we passed completely a month ago, 2 months ago, because we had an extra 2 people there. Our ratio, correctional officers to ratio to prisoners met within the guidelines.
Again, you're talking about state and federal prisoners, and
No, I'm talking about our own prisoners.
just Mercer County?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I'm talking about. And now that we lost one the other day, she gave her 2 weeks' notice.
Mhm.
You know, we have to with the budget we have to triage, okay? So I gotta decide what's important. The most important thing is the deputies on the road and the dispatch center. Somebody's gotta answer the calls, the 911 calls, all the time. Okay? So then what do? We lose right now because Mercer County's been one of the very few that has a dispatcher and a jailer that do multiple roles. Okay, most places have just jailers and dispatchers, double the amount of people. Now, the other part of that is I have to have a female. There has to be a female on every shift. Okay, and the new rules are a male. So there's no option in the matter if I don't have a male and a female on a shift. It can't be open. We will get fined. We can't do that. Those are the issues I'm dealing with all the time now. Now, the person that quit, we had an opportunity, or we had anticipated in the future of moving her to the road, okay? She didn't make the cut this time with our selection process to replace the deputy, okay? Well, now she's gonna go, well, she already got a job, and she's gone. We're gonna have an issue with that, because not only we lose a jailer and a dispatcher, but we also lost the deputy sheriff. And that's been the goal since 2003, was to get our correctional people into a position where they're also deputy sheriffs. Okay, because it helps us a lot with transportation, it helps us a lot with upholding the law if somebody gets sick. Now, this year, we don't have any overtime or anything like that. So, to comply with the budget, where I see it, is I probably won't even replace her. Because I don't see it in the, when I do my calculations, it doesn't come up. It comes up now that she's gone. Okay?
Got it.
So, these things I deal with day-to-day basis, and now this is, I don't know what we're gonna do. Because that was a position that was a female position in a jail.
I'm gonna reiterate what Wes said, and, is that I wanna tell you, thank you for coming in. It is huge for communication. Even if we don't reach mutual agreement on everything, it just smooths a lot of waters. And
I don't have a problem with that.
I really do appreciate it.
You know,
You're invited to the next
but
meeting.
like I told you, I said, I tried to have discussions. I
Mhm.
was told no.
Yeah.
Okay? So I tried that.
But I wanna invite you to the next meeting.
Okay, we'll see.
Well, thanks, Dean.
You bet. You have a good day.
Good to see you.
You too.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Swear, you've also been my portfolio holder and have yet to step foot in my department and even meet my legal assistant. So with transparency and whatnot in mind, I invite you to my office, which I have before. So feel free to stop over, feel free to ask me questions at any point, and to remind you that the portfolio is for information. It's actually, Commissioner Murray, I never even spoke to him, he didn't need to, we were relaying it. So there's not that obligation, but if you want communication and transparency, feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'll tell you the same thing I told the sheriff, and I am going, because I'm new, I've been doing a lot of homework and studies, and I apologize for not making it to your office. I did come by a couple times, and you weren't available, and that's just because I didn't announce it in advance, so that's my responsibility. When I did talk to the sheriff, one of his deputies was talking to Terry, I said, you know, I'm asking for transparency, and I said, Terry, I have to apologize to you, because if I want transparency, I have to do exactly what you just said. I have to provide that myself, and I need to lead the way. So, you are correct. I will make an appointment. And I'm working things in.
Well, and as you can tell, and with court schedule and everything, it's insane. And so if you do have questions, email me, I'll respond, whenever. But that communication, I'd
Yeah.
like to see that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. She is a nice person.
And I'm a nice person, thank you.
Let's move on. I think all we have left is portfolio updates. Is that correct? Wes?
Yep,
Depends on the day.
I got planning zoning meeting tomorrow night. Mark does too, I guess. We've got several things coming up on the docket or the agenda. I attended the legislature session last week, Wednesday, and it was supposed to have had a hearing on a House bill. Well, it's the one about the special elections. But you didn't have it, so I still spend a day there, but I got educated. Want to report on LMS and WSI. We get it. That's your learning management system and workforce safety insurance. They done an audit, and the audit did pretty good, so we're gonna get a discount on our, this spring, we'll probably get another discount on our premium on that. So that's a good job for the employees of the county. And let's see, Vision West, got a deal here from Vision West. Through the Bush Foundation, there's a Bush grant. Last year, Vision West got $500,000, and Dunn County got a sizable amount. And that's probably something Shannon can just post to all the department heads. They can, if we have some sort of project, you can apply for it, we might get a grant on it. I'll just give that copy to you. I did visit with some of the department heads on it, and Marvin, you can probably, it probably work, the Sheriff's Department could probably find something with that, so you can probably visit with them on that. And there's a website there, you can just investigate it yourself. And I'll be gone from March 1st to March 10th. That's all I got.
That was a bunch.
It was a bunch.
Barb?
Yeah. Well, the sheriff helped out a lot, because a couple of things I was gonna update you guys on was, I wanted to explain that part-time person he put on was not being paid, but it helped him maintain his credentials and be used for emergencies. The other part is that Samantha Melberg put in her resignation, and Dean explained that there too, that they may or may not feel that. They're possibly looking at not filling that. That's my two sheriff updates. I have one more thing I want to show you guys. In addition to not being to the state's attorney, I've not been to the clerk of courts yet either. I did go, I've been visiting with the sheriff. I thought the area that we had the most areas of communication concerns. They did stop in last week, and I toured the jail. I got familiar a bit with that. And I got a ride along that I have to schedule with him, and I have to go back to the youth bureau and go with them also. So I'm trying to stay busy and just make my priorities. I want to pass out a sheet of paper here, and I gave each one of you these, but I'll give one to Shanna. I almost called you Samantha. Sorry. This just shows, I was doing some historical information. Shanna's been helping me a lot, and I realize I've been a pain for her sometimes, but for me to understand what the commission is going and where they're going, or what they're doing and where they're going, I need to get some historical data. So the very first page just shows one department, and I did it for all my departments, portfolios, where we were in 15 and how the costs have changed in 4 years' time. And that's all that is. On the bottom of the sheet, it shows inflation. If you take 15's salary, or 15's costs times 1.03, you come up to the 88.7. You take that times 1.03 to 90.7. It just shows where we would be if we had just a 3-year inflation, because nothing stays the same. So I'm just telling you that I did get some historical data, and I kind of got a feel for how things flow and what to expect. The second sheet is what I hope to track some costs in mostly just the departments that have been historically over budget. I can tell, I'll collect the costs on a monthly basis, what it is for each one of those line items. I have the budget on the back end, and I can subtract it and tell you what's left. My goal is that in assisting these portfolio holders and in visiting with even the deputy sheriffs, they said, hallelujah. And that's not their word, but they said, thank you, we need another set of eyes. We want another perspective, another way to view this. And he said, they would like to see that. And so that, let's just say we get towards October and we don't have enough money to make it to the end of the year. They need to make some adjustments and come to the commission and inform the commission in advance so that we make whatever adjustments we can possibly make. Sometimes we may not be able to, but to try to balance the budget out. The very last page just shows, this here's the sheriff's department. It just shows the changes in the 4 years, and salaries went up considerably, from 490 to 594 in 4 years' time. Now, they're gonna go back down again because the number of people on salary has changed. And just show you that I'm getting a flavor for how things are flowing and what to expect and where we might go. That's all I have. Thank you.
Wayne?
The weed board met the other night, and they're gonna, well, first of all, Brad had to go to mine it, and he got recertified, so thank goodness he's our weed officer again for next 3 years, or at least licensed for the next 3 years. The next thing is they're putting out bids for this coming year, and that'll be in the paper probably this coming week or so, and the chemical bids for this coming year. And there's, I'll report a little later on, there's some chemical changes here that some chem might be going away, and another one is gonna be brought in that's a little bit cheaper, and so once we get these bids together, then I can bring those chemicals in, and then I think they did set the cost share, and don't probably quote this exactly, but I believe it's 70-30. Is that what we had last year?
70-30?
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what they're gonna, I think they had a motion on that the other night, so. I guess, that part there, I think that's all I got for that. We met, or of course, we had airport meeting the other night. I thought we'd probably be able to move up, our runway, project on the overlay and stuff. But I don't think so. It'll be very likely 2020 when this is done, but we'll do the engineering that, well, it's like pre-engineering that you always gotta get done. And, so they're working on that side of the coin, and if, you know, we don't know if things can change, but I don't think, you know, this House Bill 1066, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of the other airports, pretty well ear tagged those funds already, or they're shifting that to that direction, like, you know, the Jamestowns, the Grand Forkses, and those types of things, so we'll just,
You need to go down and do some lobbying.
I know.
Sell a cab, why,
Yeah.
supper or something.
And I kind of forgot too, just one other little additional thing, you know, we did put in a camera system here about a year ago and so, and anyhow, they got a graph that I didn't bring it in, or forgot about it. But basically, it's the touch and goes and the fuel and the usage and stuff. Well, you know, you assume there's probably 2 or 3 units that came in here, and that's it. Like in December, the weather was pretty good. I don't know exactly have the number, but it graphs this. So there was a huge usage in December. The weather was nice, and folks were just out flying or getting their training, the touch and goes and stuff. So I got a graph on that, so I'll bring that in and let you guys
They're
just,
selling the fuel too cheap, that's.
well, that's part of the business,
He's a
Wes.
farmer.
That's part of being business. You need to exercise the pavements, so. But that was, that camera system really pays off. You can really tell your usage, and you can show this to you know, Bismarck and to the federal, program that this, you know, here it is.
You've got some data.
Got some data, you got some baseline, you got some reason for things, so. So yeah, that's about all I had, Dwayne.
Okay, on the 7th, I had my first Custer Health Board meeting. I fit right in there with the rest of the older guys.
Do you? Good.
We're moving forward with filling Keith Johnson's position, the administrator.
Okay.
And they had one interested applicant from internal, but it was recommended they better post this because they get outside funding.
Oh, sure.
So it's, I think the 7th of March, they're gonna schedule some interviews, so I might have to go down for that, I don't know. And then, ambulance board meeting is on the 25th at 6 PM in Beulah. Landfill is doing okay for now. We've got a meeting set up on the 27th at 2 in the afternoon at the landfill with Sherwin Warner, with Houston Engineering. He has redone the scope of that project and a new estimate. I kind of have to see for myself, but I think the new estimate might be something we can handle. Yes, depending on the bidding. So, as well, see how that goes. And then I'm gonna move forward on getting that household. We can't keep it on here
You need
for
to
too
give them
long.
a little better loan.
You give them the money and then we'll be in good shape.
The city of Gold Valley's got a little bit, you
This
know.
isn't the city's building, it's the county's.
Along that
Yeah,
house,
but it's in Gold Valley, so.
along with that house, I'll wait till the meeting's over and then I'll ask you a question.
Good idea.
Good
Yeah,
idea.
we can't discuss that.
We'll adjourn the meeting. I think we're done.
Just,
Yeah.